With the PokeFlipz podcast, joined by my usual co-host, Catch 'em All Collectibles, Dan. And today we have a very special guest joining us for the first time. We got Mr. Gem Mint Pokemon, Zach. How are you both doing today?
Doing well.
I'm doing great, man. Doing great, man.
Very excited to have
Glad to
Zach on.
hear.
Finally, it's been far too long. I apologize. I had the audio set up improperly for the first 2 seconds. Nick, give us one more. Hey everyone, give us one more.
Hey everyone! Old
There,
school Pokemon here.
there we go. They got what they came for. I think everyone knows who is on the screen with us right now. But as we always do, even when it's someone much more big and famous than us, Zach, why don't you take it away? Give your little spiel. We're going to talk about Charlotte Collectacon today. We're going to recap that event some, and we're also going to go wherever the chat leads us, and then maybe Zach has a couple topics he wants to talk about. So yeah, who are you, Zach? Who
Oh
is
my
this? Who is this individual?
oh my gosh. Hey everyone, my name is Zach Browning. I go by Gym at Pokemon online. I have been since around 2013, 2014 or so, and it is just an absolute pleasure to be here with you guys. Every time I hear Nick say, "Hey everyone," it just like gives me goosebumps and chills. I just want to give him a big old hug and like I mean, I've watched both Nick and Dan grow so much and just become such good community members and pillars of the hobby. And you can just see so many people who are growing because of them. And like, I'm just so happy to be here, so happy to support you guys, and really excited just to kind of talk about a number of different things today, and really kind of talk about any questions that the audience may have. So thank you so much for inviting me today.
Yeah, thanks for coming on.
Oh, thanks for joining us today.
We probably will do a little bit of like just hanging out, chatting amongst us three, talking the weekend a little bit. Zach's got some big things coming up that he wants to talk about too. So leave your questions in chat. I promise I will do my best to get to all of them. With a guest as big as this, we might not be able to get to every single one. But yeah, we are here with you for the next 3 hours till about 4:15 p.m. Eastern. We have to cut it. But leave the questions and I'll get to them when I can, as I can. But where do you guys want to start? You guys want to just talk about the weekend with Charlotte a little bit? Or Zach, do you want to talk about some big upcoming items that are out there? And actually, shout out, Zach didn't mention it, but Next Gen TCG, a great new podcast that Zach runs with co-host Tetra Ninja. Anyone who remembers from E4 days, someone who was over there, he's actually a big video game YouTuber as well. But you guys are doing great stuff over there. Quite a bit higher, I will say, Tetra. Tetra has your all the audio, video, some editing going on, higher production value than we're able to do over here. We just go live, no editing, because we're incapable of doing so. But yeah, check out Next Gen TCG if you haven't yet, for sure.
Yeah, I think we could start with basically like what I'm doing today, if that makes sense. Because Dan, I mean, we were talking a little bit, and you're like, you got to tell everyone like what you're doing, what's going on, and I live it, so every day I'm kind of living, breathing, kind of what I'm doing each and every day. And so when you were like, hey, tell everyone what you're doing, it's like, okay, well maybe kind of bring everyone up to speed on what I got going on, what I'm doing day to day, and kind of different things like that. So if you guys don't mind, maybe I can just give kind of a quick overview there, and then bring everyone up to speed.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. So, history of the Pokemon community. I worked in, healthcare like 10 plus years, basically built a collection. You get to the point where you're buying, big collections, you're selling it off, you have extras, this and that. And so as time went on, you kind of get to the point that, you aren't really meaning to run a business, but you're kind of running a business. Always wanted to do Pokemon full time. It's been kind of a goal to do eventually, kind of do what you love, and almost like you don't work a day in your life. So it got to the point where this June, essentially I left a professional, job to come have fun with the boys every day, and try to build a business that can support itself. So it's been tremendously busy the last few months. I cannot understate, like, when you work for yourself, how much busier it is, just working a full-time job and doing like a hobby on the side. So the last few months I've really just trying to been to stabilize kind of what I'm doing day to day, and trying to get to a point where it's sustainable, and you're not worried about where things are coming and going, and you can kind of live and breathe. So mostly what I'm doing today is I'm just trying to buy, massive, collections, trying to buy out stores, trying to really acquire inventory, kind of get the basis for growing a good business. I think you guys know over the years I did a lot of collecting, and so I prioritized sort of what I wanted personally, and I didn't necessarily always prioritize what made the most money, or if there was a great deal, I might have sent it to Rusty, this or that. And so now it's kind of like, because you live and breathe and work the hobby, I'm really just trying to kind of stabilize what's going on. So what does that mean for you guys? If you have any bulk cards you're trying to sell, any modern EX Vs, any old Watsi, anything that's like near mint plus, I probably wouldn't take played cards, but anything that's excellent or better. We're really just kind of buying as much of that as we can, and really we have the capacity to kind of buy as much as you have. So feel free to reach out, feel free to let me know. And then what we do is we basically are focused on like the streamer market, which is I think one of the biggest growth segments in the hobby. And so a lot of the people that I think tune into streamers, I think they're not necessarily like the people tuning into this podcast. I think a lot of the people on TikTok or whatnot, or Drip, or any of those places, they're kind of the casual collector who just wants to hop on, get a cool Pokemon card, and then move on. So really, my business is, I have a partner that I'm working with as well too, and sort of our business is focused on trying to cater to that market, figure out what they want, try to grow that piece. So I have a really good idea. It's been working good so far, and we're just trying to get it to a point where it's stable. So curious what's going on every day. That's basically what I'm doing, trying to get that set up. So I'm sure that'll have a ton of questions.
Hmm. Doing big things.
Yeah. Hidden shit cards. Oh man. Well, I mean, what's crazy is the crazy part about the streamer piece of it is like a 5 cent Pika would, like, someone would be happier for that than like a $5 Caterpie. You know what I mean? If you have like a shadowless PSN and Caterpie that's probably at least like $5 to $10, like someone would be happier with like a 5 cent modern Pika. And that's the really interesting part with like catering to the streamer business. It's not the people you talk to every day. It's literally like a different audience. And so I'm trying to understand that audience, trying to figure out like what they want. And it's volatile. Those people, they kind of find their streamer, they come back to it, they love the people they with. And I don't necessarily deal with the end customer a lot of times. I think you have to have like a customer service, you have to have all these sort of other pieces that kind of add costs. Whereas if you work directly with the streamer, it's a little bit different. So I think there's an opportunity there, and I'm just gonna chase it and kind of to see what happens. It always feels like the best opportunities are the ones people aren't talking about. And I feel like develop something kind of stable, and hopefully in 10 years, I think that's where live streaming's going for the hobby. So we can get good people and kind of really stabilize that. I think it could be something that the hobby it could be a whole segment of the hobby sort of going forward.
Mhm. Here's a question I'll
Regardless of
actually
binder buy.
here's a question I'll grab because it seems pretty on topic, and I think it's an interesting thing. The way that Zach being full time in the hobby, but in a different means. I guess I'll start with my answer here. Your average player, when going in full time, how do you justify keeping cards when the cash flow could grow your business? I think Nick and I do things a lot more similarly, where we are a business that is a flipping business primarily. So we buy inventory at some percent of market, we sell it for market or higher, whatever. We grade it, we improve our inventory to sell it for more. It's a bit different though when you're like more pulling a salary. One thing that makes me think, and Zach, again, feel free to share as little or as much as you want, but like Probstein comes to mind. Probstein does business in the industry, but he's more like, he's a consigner. He's not as much a flipper. He actually collects massively. When you look at his background, when you look at him ripping the T206 Onus Wagner, I don't know what exactly the product is called. Like, it's old cigarette packs. I've seen shorts of him opening that product, trying to chase like Onus Wagners and things of that nature. So just an interesting dynamic. Me personally, I'm a business. I flip primarily. So every dollar of cash flow that I have tied up in collection, I cannot go out and source new inventory. And I guess theoretically, if you get to a certain level, maybe you have so much that you don't have the time to spend every dollar you have, and the cash flow being tied up isn't as big of a thing. But me personally, I'm not there yet. So when I decided to go full time, pretty much all of my former inventory former collection became like, this is more seriously inventory, this is all for sale, most of it's gone. I mean, some of it's still sticking around. I do price it a little bit higher, I cling to it a little bit tighter, but at the end of the day, like, it's all inventory and it all is available for sale. Nick, if you want to share your own experiments that would be more in line with mine. Zach, if you want to talk about, like, how do you maintain your position in the PSA registry, all that you've done, and then like being full-time in the hobby.
So for me, going full time, I definitely cut back my own collection and just kind of dialed it back a little bit and really focused on what was important to me. So at the time it was getting rid of my binder sets, getting rid of some, although I had those Poncho Pikachu boxes. Wish I had held on to those a little bit longer, but got rid of those. Got rid of a bunch of like just like one-off cards that were in my collection, and I really focused on my three main collections: theme decks, booster packs, and No Damage Ninetales. Those three are kind of the things that I like the most, the things that I look through the most and appreciate the most, and all that stuff. So, um, decided to just hold on to those three, and that definitely helped free up some cash flow to put back into the business, as well as make it so that I wasn't spending so much money on just stuff that was going to go back into my collection. So just kind of dialing it back, focusing on what really matters to you would be my thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest constraints that like hold back is that collecting piece. So if I buy $1,000 collection and I cherry pick and skim off the top or do something like that, then that $1,000 collection no longer is going to be as fruitful, going forward, and that really hurts your growth. So like one of the best ways to succeed in this hobby is to have a lot of cash on hand and also to have a really high risk tolerance and like have confidence at risk tolerance. The experience and just doing it over and over, knowing that this card is hot and it's going, it's spiking like just all like the little ins and outs to kind of have that risk tolerance that's like more educated, I guess you would say. And so when you do collect, you are taking away cash. And I used to tell people this all the time. Like when I bought that 8K error card, that's in my collection, that's $8,000 I no longer have to work with, that I no longer have, any sort of opportunity with. Because really, when I buy a collection card, I don't resell it. So it just siphons cash flow. And going full time has definitely changed my perspective on extras that I have that I really want to have a long term on. Because even if I can make like let's say I sell an extra that's worth like 5 grand, um, and I can make 10% on that 5 grand 4 times a year. It's like over the course of like 5 years, that five, it's just it's running this as a business is going to be way better than kind of sitting on some things. And so I've kind of opened my eyes more to being less tight on certain inventory things. And you also got to keep in mind, like I finished PSC 10 Skyridge in 2015, and so like I didn't finish Watsi like recently. I guess I kind of did, but it was like the one or two cars that was hard to find. But the bulk of it, I've had for a number of years. And so when you do go full time, you really have to ask yourself, like, are you committed? And it really is a hard sort of transition going from going to shows and having and being friendly with everyone, this and that, to doing deals with people. And there's certain people that like I would just be friends with. They're not like from a business standpoint, it just doesn't make sense. From a friend standpoint, I love the guys, to death. And so there's a lot of things that are more difficult to adjust with. And I'm you're kind of learning that the hard way as you go through. And it is different being full time, this and that. So it's been definitely a struggle, definitely a lot of time, a lot of stress. But we're trying to figure it out and just keep in mind, keep your head up, keep going forward, and you just kind of have to figure out your business may be different, sort of your collecting. Yeah, a lot of things to hop in there.
Mm-hmm. Um, there was another question I grabbed. Oh yeah, from Leaf Green Goblin. Being so engrossed in Pokemon, what is one part of the hobby you wish to explore more? Nick, if you want to start, I'll try to be better about having different people start so I don't hog them all first.
Hmm. Um, part of the hobby you wish to explore more. I guess for me, it would still be. This has been one that I've said for a long time, and it's never happened. But I would still really like to learn how to actually play the game at some point. Right now I have absolutely no idea how to play the game, and I do think that would help my business with the singles, knowing which cards are playable versus which cards aren't as playable. But I think they would both be really fun to learn, and it would also help the business at the same time. So that is something that I do want to learn about at some point. Just need the time and ability to sit down and take the time to actually learn how everything works. How about you guys?
I thought about like I like the play mats and stuff, and I like you look back like there's all these cool play mats out there, and there's a lot of fake play mats nowadays, and like the fake play mats are being made the same way, like same factory, everything. It's like impossible to tell. So it's like you get a cool play mat that like my keyboard has a different play mat than like board, and I just swapped it out like last night. And so like that's kind of a cool piece, but I really don't want to pay more than like 100, $200 a play mat because it's risky. I like picking up the different Pikachu plushies, like the different styles and stuff like that. Any sort of art, I love picking up like Pokemon art. I've probably had 3 different pieces commissioned this year. 2 of them are gifts, and then I usually try to hang things on walls so you can see that. And probably something else I love is like careful here. This is awesome. I probably pick up one of these every like 3 years or so. But this is from 2015, the first. I just think it's sick. I'm working on getting a custom case for it, stuff with a good friend of ours, and like I just think awesome way hobby. It's also kind of an investment way, but the public prices are like so much higher than like what they actually sell for. And when you see like the constantly just taking them for sale, like why are they still for sale? Because people say what it's worth are not the people offering, not the people buying. So I have a lot of comps for these privately, and all the private comps I hear for actual deals so much lower than like what people publicly. I don't know. That's the other thing with like Facebook and Reddit and all these things. You have the people like trying to protect the prices when it's like they aren't the buyers, and so it's all these like weird social situations you get in where like I would love to get one of these. I have a number one and number three. I would love to get a number two. Okay, but like I'm not gonna pay triple like the highest sale I know. I don't know. It's a weird market.
Yeah. It's always funny when you have commentary from the peanut gallery who never has
Yeah.
or will own one, and they have such like not even just like, oh, I think I've heard that those go for XYZ. That thing is worth this. Don't take a penny less than that. And they're basing it off of like a Reddit
Yeah.
post or a Facebook. They have they've never been a party to a transaction. They never will be. And it's always funny. But I liked both answers a lot. I think I've actually mentioned it before, but Nick's answer of getting into the TCG, as of right now, still my son wants to start learning, and I told him that'll be like a nice winter project when the weather's not so nice. So I do look forward to pulling out the Battle Academy, pulling out the what's it called, Match Battle that you get from McDonald's right now, and working through that with him. My answer was just going to be like more events. I have mentioned before, 3 to 4 a year is kind of my cap, but like I've done a lot of what I want to do cardboard wise, and Zach's answer also works really well. I'm just taking a little bit of everyone's answer. You can see behind me, I do a lot of non-cardboard stuff too. Like I have like marbles, I have battling coins. I actually have a decent sized collection, but a lot of it is like the stuff that the market doesn't value so much, but I value more than the market. That's why I'm retaining it. I don't think they're not investments either. They're purely collectibles because I don't really think they're ever gonna like stonk and go crazy like cards did or do. But yeah, like I think, and maybe if this is more broadly for just like the audience, I would recommend that a lot more people who haven't yet gone to a Collectacon, gone to a card party, gone to a local event near them, gone to their LGS, like just engaging with other people more deeply in our mutual enjoyment of the hobby. I think that's always like a very plus EV type thing to explore more into. So, we had a question come in from Java directed at Zach. Question: I assume you had a well-paying job prior to taking this full time. what ultimately made you comfortable enough to leave it behind for Pokemon?
I think the number of things that go into that, it's like you look at career path and career trajectory and stuff. And, if you look at, if I would have stayed in healthcare 5, 10, 20 years, it's like the safe path. You know where that's going to go. Either you keep your job or you get fired, or, either you have a great ending. And it took me forever to make that decision just because, you could do what you love. You could still build your collection. You could still do all these things. And so I think when it came down to I had a great opportunity that sort of popped up. It let me keep relatively like similar income based on kind of performance that was going on. And then it also let me do what I love full time. I think if you get the chance to ever do what you love, I think you'll always look back and think, man, I wish I would have gave it a shot. I wish I would have tried it. I talked to a number of people about it just to make sure it's the right decision. They said you could always, go back to healthcare. You could always, do this or that. It's like I think people get caught up in what they do every day and they forget their skill set. And so like what is your skill set? Like what can you accomplish? If you put me in any other industry, like where would I fit in that industry? And I think the way the path life takes us is kind of um, you know, it's it's always different for everyone, but I think you could always change up what you do and be relatively successful in another field. And I think a lot of people just don't want to take the chance, or they don't have the risk tolerance, this or that. So, um, yeah, I think it just came down to like, you only have one life. You don't want to look back and think, what if? And so I'm giving it all I got. Things are going well right now, and I just hope that they continue to be in a way that I can just talk to you guys on a Tuesday or on a Thursday at 1 o'clock. Like, I think that's awesome. That's not something I could do before. And I just can't wait to just see what the future holds. I'm excited for where we're at right now.
Yeah, you've always been one I thought should be full-time Pokemon, and I'm glad you finally took the jump. Hopefully it works out for you.
Maybe I'll
I'm
come move in
sure it
with you,
will.
Nick. I'll be your card sorter.
There we go. There we go.
Yeah, there's plenty of backlog to get through over here too. If Nick doesn't have any work for you. Um,
Uh,
I see Steve TCG asked Dan, "Are you doing any live openings for 151?" I saw that as my entry, as my in for shilling myself and Nick a little bit. Tomorrow, I don't know what time yet. Go subscribe over at Catch 'em All Collectibles on YouTube. I will schedule tonight sometime. I'll probably open 151 tomorrow for a few hours during the day on YouTube. And then Nick, where and when can we find you opening 151?
I'll be doing tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Eastern. I'll be doing 151 openings on eBay Live. So really looking forward to that. I haven't opened any of it myself, but I definitely want to open a couple packs for myself later today, tonight, and then tomorrow night be opening it up for you guys. So hopefully have a good time over there.
I'll do some right now. How about that?
Oh, there we go. There we go.
I'm just kidding. That's the box Rusty gave us. And for whatever reason, I think I had to run off or something. I didn't get a chance to open it with you guys at the hotel. So
I
maybe I'll save
actually
it for the next.
I still have mine sealed, and what I'm gonna do tonight with the family, we're gonna open one English ETB, and then we're gonna open the Japanese 151 box from Rusty's. So I'm looking forward to that. I've not opened a single pack yet of 151. I'm gonna do just the one tonight, and I'm gonna be running ETBs tomorrow. Nick, you're gonna be doing buy it nows of like X amount of pack lots, or you're doing ETBs, or how are you running it?
Yeah, so I decided to break all my stuff down into single packs. So I'm going to be doing single packs and then 5-pack lots. Not going to be doing any ETBs, booster bundles, collection boxes, anything like that. So it'll just be the packs to save time and then help me out with the shipping a little bit.
Mm.
Internet was like, Zach gave me a bottle of vodka once, definitely for the community. I'm like, hey, that's probably true. Like, I was trying to think which event was that? Because it might have been more than one.
That would have been Orlando, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly. You remember the Airbnb we hung out at for a while, played some poker?
Yeah, well, there were a couple times where it first started because we were in New York City and we're at like a hotel room, and someone went to the hotel bar like, yeah, I got 4 drinks, like $75. I was like, dude, let's not pay $75 for 4 drinks. We went down to like liquor store, I got like a handle of something, and went back up to the same hotel lobby. We got cups from like the hotel, and then we just started passing around, and like one bottle got 10 people feeling pretty good for same. It was $75 for the handle, which is still like outrageous, but it beats 40.
That is
Is
that is very true. That is very true.
Uh,
I like your thriftiness.
yeah, it's a lot better EV just having drinks with the gang in the hotel lobbies or whatever after the bar shut down. I would not recommend bringing in handles of alcohol when there's a bar nearby still serving, because they might not take too kindly to that. But once those close down, and usually it's at like midnight, I mean, in my opinion, it's just fair game at that point, right?
Oh yeah,
L
yeah.
Dubs.
Questions are flying
Yeah, there's a lot. There's no way we're gonna get to every question. I apologize in advance if I don't get your question highlighted. At some point too, I kind of want to just like take the questions off the screen and talk about our experiences at Collectacon at some point too. But Ldub says, now that you're getting into full-time Pokemon, have you branched out to do more sealed buying / selling as well? If you want to talk, Zach, like I actually don't even fully know myself. Is there any aspect of your business? Is it just like the mass quantities of kind of hit cards as you talked about? Or do you do anything with sealed distribution?
Yeah, I think that's a really, really good question. And the business partner I have that I'm working with, we've talked about a little bit, all the different areas of the hobby that are quote unquote profitable, as in like can feed you, pay your bills, and like let you go to shows. You know what I mean? We're not saying profitable like buy a Ferrari. We're talking profitable like allow you to. That's what we're saying here. And so I think what we've pretty much established is like there's kind of a core piece of the business that we want to essentially focus on and grow. I don't know how many financial influencers or different people you look into or this or that, but like if you have something you're really really good at and you grow and you can be the best at it, typically you're gonna just kind of do better in the long term rather than trying to do like things at once. And so while there are other things I think are good moves, like buying a certain modern set like English 151 and then sitting on it for 5 years, I think that product will be profitable, as in worth more than it is today in 5 years. I think that's a really good move. But if you can't do everything at once, and a move like that actually takes a ton of capital and holding it for a long period of time. And so like there's a number of things that I've looked into and thought about and that I think are good like ancillary moves, as in things to do like once this is up and running and I've got an extra 5 hours, in a week to do this, like, hey, let's do this. And so like yeah, it's something I've thought about. It's not something we're doing right now. Um, but yeah, you kind of have to pick what you want and just try to do it as well as you can and figure out what your competitive advantages are, and try to do it in a way that other people aren't. If something's easily replicable, chances are you'll get washed out. If it's There's a lot of like risk trying to figure out what to choose.
Mm-hmm. Here's actually a good question from Wilt Chamberlain in the chat that we can kind of use to pivot into the whole Collecticon recap portion. So, sup, fellas? Question for the three of y'all. What was your favorite purchase or favorite sale at the convention this weekend? Apologies if this has already been asked. Just got here. I bought I bought 2 Moonbreons. I know Zach and Nick can't see them yet. They'll be on a 30-second delay to the stream. But yeah, Jake was right to my right. He had 3 tables to my right. Jake was doing big things all weekend. I mean, my sales were solid all weekend. I didn't buy much, but Jake did take in 2 Moonbreons in trade towards some larger deals. And instead of taking them home, grading them, one of them is like a 10. One of them is 95% chance going to be a 10. The other one's iffy. But yeah, he just turned around. Hey, Dan, you want to buy these? Probably upcharged me 20% or something. He probably made $50 to $100 like right off the jump, and hopefully leaving some meat on the bone for me. He wins, I win. The person he traded with won because they got what they want out of it. So it's always good when you can like be a party to deals where both sides win. I mean, ideally that's the way all the deals work, right? And then another thing I bought, which is a little more like niche, you don't see all the time, but I was pretty excited about, and they all look really clean. I bought a JR rally set. Again, sorry, Nick and Zach, you'll see it in a little bit. But I don't know if this is the full set, but I have Pikachu, Lugia, Mewtwo, Entei, Celebi, and Pichu which actually via the numbers, it looks like I have no gaps, but I might be missing something. I'm not entirely sure, but they look pretty clean. I paid $1,000 for it. If most of them 10, I mean, if the Pikachu doesn't 10 and a couple of the bigger ones don't 10, I'll probably lose money on it. But they looked pretty clean. One great thing about conventions, you can look at it in person. You don't have to look at photos. You don't have to wonder, is the lighting, is there a dent there, whitening? You can take the card out. You can inspect it very, very well. Get out your flashlight on your phone if you need to look for surface stuff. But I took other things in trade here and there, slabs for slabs, but those were kind of like my standout purchases. What about you guys? Any big deals? Any big things you want to highlight?
Uh, I'm glad you got the JR's rally set. I bought a bunch off that guy, and I sent him over to you and Jake because I figured one of you two would want that.
I appreciate it.
I passed on that one, but from that same guy, I bought a good bit of stuff off of him, and one of the cards was a McDonald's Squirtle from the McDonald's set with Squirtle eating some gum, blowing a bubble. Absolutely love that card, and I think that one is going to get a 10. So I'll be curious to know if that one does. Excited to send that off to PSA, see if we can get a 10 out of that one. But aside from that, it was a lot of like bulkier type purchases. Some slabs, some single cards. Did a good bit of buying. Sales were pretty good too, but nothing. No like big sales. It was a lot of just like couple $100 sales. So I'd say that purchase was probably my favorite one of the weekend.
And then my favorite card of the weekend, I got a chance to go hang out with PK, Poke Knowledge a little bit, and he's just been such a huge advocate for PSA and just different topics in the hobby, and I just love how passionate he is, and so he speaks his mind, he doesn't hold back, he loves the hobby, and so I went to his booth with the intention to buy something, and I wanted to, kind of support him a little bit. And lo and behold, he had something that I actually really, really like that you don't see every day, and it is the Typhlosion 17 Japanese, the corrected version. So you can see it says corrected in the title, and then it has the plus sign on the 60. And so he tried to work a deal a little bit, and I gave him his full ask. I wanted to just show that, like, hey, I'm supporting you, and I want you to do well. Keep doing what you're doing. And I obviously do a lot of stuff with CGC and PSA, and I would do more with Beckett if a long story, but it was just one of those things where I just love him for just being unapologetic and being who he is, and it's okay to have different opinions in the hobby and just be yourself and stand your ground on things. So just happy to get something from him, and it's something cool I like. So for me, this was my favorite purchase, just mostly because of the story that goes along. That's my card of the week for Collector's Corner. If you watch the Gen podcast, so little spoiler there.
Oh, there
Spoilers.
we go. We got some
All right.
next gen spoilers. That's already recorded.
Yeah, we record on Monday. Then Tetch is very, very busy, so just give him some time to do the editing. That so yeah, he does YouTube full time, so he's been doing this for years, like probably over 10 years. So he just delivers a very polished product. And what's the one thing I'm horrible at? Editing and all the things. Every video I've ever posted is like literally one take. You record it, you post it, and it's just I want it to be just pure content from beginning to end. So he like actually allows like better product than that. So it's a great compliment. He's a great partner to work with.
Yeah, you're right in the same wheelhouse as us. You not making too much content lately, but you did hit us with some in the spring. You came out with a decent bit of videos there, some from the archives, and then some more modern and more current videos. But yeah, it's always a pleasure when you see that subscription Gem Mint Pokemon new video pop up. It's a rare treat.
All right.
Probably
I'll
not
do better.
not quite as rare as an old school Pokemon video. I'll say that much.
Shots fired! Shots fired, baby. What do you say, Nick?
I don't have any rebuttal to that. I agree. It's been way too long. One of these days it'll happen. Probably not this year. Not this year.
You're live every night, man.
See? It's just not on Dan's favorite platform.
Oh man.
Hey.
Uh, um, Here's a
That's pretty
question. Sorry, go ahead, Zach.
so that's pretty funny.
Um,
Oh.
Ernesto has a question for Zach. How do you feel about your complete Watsi collection nowadays? Do you still have all the cards? And also, how has completing that goal changed your goals moving forward?
I mean, that's a great question. I still have all the cards that are part of the main collection. I still have all the error cards. I think maybe Tetra and I talked about selling collection cards at one point, and only twice ever have I ever sold a card that I would consider part of the collection. And both times, or at least one time, it was for a price that I thought was 20x, like fair market value. So I was like, okay, I'll get that card again some point in the future. But I still don't want to like venture away from that. I like to take the approach. If you want it, you got to buy all of it. And so, like, if someone wants it and they want to give me full market value for everything, I think sure. That's also a great buying strategy. If you have like one card that's really hard to get and someone just wants that one card and you split it up, you're really going to hurt yourself trying to sell the rest of it. But if you force someone to buy everything, it really solves that problem for you like right away. And so like my take is if someone wants it, they have to take all of it at once. And that buyer is like, it's just going to be hard to find that buyer. One, are they looking for it? And two, um, can they afford it? This or that. So I just, I've got it all tucked away. Pretty much any car that's semi valuable is in a safety deposit box somewhere, and a lot of the less valuable cards, like $50 and under, are all just kind of in a place that's pretty hard to access. So it's like I just, I've kind of positioned myself in a way that I really just don't touch it, don't think about it, and I just work with kind of what's in front of me. So again, when you go full time business, you go full time Pokemon, you really have to put everything on the table. And there may come a point in the future that if the economy has a downturn, for like a year or more, but you have to think about what are you going to do? If I were to spend a ton of money on a big card coming up that goes low, that may change my positioning in the future. I may be open to selling something. So the other kind of interesting topic to think about is when you're full-time Pokemon, like what's going to grow the fastest? So like I've kind of forgot about my collection, but it may not grow as fast as certain high growth areas on other things today. And so like that's the other point is like, and Dan, we'll talk about this a little bit later, but there's a really big item that I have an extra of that I'm available soon. And really the only rationale behind selling that item is that I think there's other areas of the hobby that could grow faster than that one item. And so, yeah, it's a big item. Yeah, it's a staple. Yeah, it's sort of the lifeblood of sort of a certain era generation. But if you think other things can perform better, then like, you have to think about like where's the cash better suited. So it's also positioning me for a larger purchase that may or may not happen. So there's a
Mm,
lot of things that kind of go into that, but I'm sure we can answer questions as they come up.
yeah, yeah, makes sense.
Or-
We've always got a lively chat. Some of our all-time chat MVPs are present, so I figured they wouldn't miss this guest. Um, you mentioned that if you had to sell any of it, you'd almost rather sell it all. So, putting you on the spot here, is there a number for any listener out there with deep pockets? Is there a number that would make them become the biggest, the PSA registry #1 for the Watsi collection? Well, is there a number? Have you ever put thought into it? What it would take, or
like I don't want to think about it because like I don't, to me, it's not what brings me joy in the hobby, this or that.
mm,
Like if you said like 5 million, like I would say no, like right away. I don't even need to think about that. Said 20 million, I'd probably say yes. Like to me, that feels like a lot of work, this, that. And the weird part is, you have these guys that run card stores for 4 years and they build this huge inventory, this, that. When they come to sell it, they sell it like at a 40% discount. And it like blows my mind. Like, why build all this value over all these years just to kind of haircut yourself right at the end, right when it makes sense? And so, like, I've already kind of told myself I don't want to do that. And the way that kind of I don't want to get into taxes, this and that, but like ultimately, like when I do sell it, I'll have a pretty hefty tax bill unless like I die, if you know what I mean. kind of the way the inheritance all that works.
Mm.
Kind of step up the basis when you
Stepped up
die.
cost basis. Yep.
Um, yeah, and so I just know that like when that sell time does come, like I'm already going to take a massive haircut on taxes. So it's
Mhm.
like you find more enjoyment in the cards, and there's some cards that are hard to get that are huge chase cards that I love that are only worth like 15 bucks at auction. That like you just don't know how rare and valuable that is. It's like I would never sell that. I would just love to hold on to that like $15 card. And there's a lot of super rare error cards that I've top buyer. I'm paid the most on the market. That's how I got those cards. And if you were to auction those for sale, they would probably go way lower because I'm the ideal buyer for that card. And it's a really weird dynamic where a lot of the values, I don't know, it's baked in. It's such a long conversation, but it would have to be something that like it would. I don't even think I would do it for fair market value. That's probably the I enjoy the hobby too much.
Yeah,
I
I'm
mean,
one of. Sorry, go ahead.
no, you can go ahead. I got another example after that, but I want to talk the whole time.
I was just gonna say, like, very rarely, if ever, do sets go for a premium in Pokemon. Like, I'm one of those that buys the sets, breaks them down, and then sells them. But if you don't need to sell, that's the thing. Like, one of the worst things you could do, Zach, and you know this, is send your entire collection of the thousands of cards into one Heritage or Golden auction, because there's very few people in the world that could afford that. It would likely be like some big business buying it out and then just breaking it down into the pieces and paying that 40% that you mentioned and then just getting the full market value over time. But if you're in a position where you don't need to sell, and always try to be in this position, be in a position where you don't need to sell, like I could see a potential world where a Logan Paul or a Steve Aoki or whoever it may be worth hundreds of millions, or maybe there's even a billionaire out there, their kid wants the biggest Pokemon collection in the world all at once for Christmas. Who knows? Put it out there, put that big flashy listing up on eBay, and something like that is worthy of a set premium. I'm not the consumer of that. I don't know that we have the consumer of that listening, but it does make a lot of sense that that is, I mean, over a decade of work or a decade of work, right?
Yeah, I mean, Logan Paul's a grail collector. He wouldn't be interested in something like this. You really need, the ideal buyer for that is probably someone that's our age that's still acquiring their net worth. And things change over time. Like I crushed it in my 20s, and I may not crush it in my 40s. Who knows? Like you can't predict the future, but there could be someone else that does. And the example I want to give earlier is, like I want everyone in the audience like ask themselves this question: if you won the lottery today and you had $500,000 cash in your checking account, what would and like my first thought is like I'd hire a nutritionist, personal trainer, and I would love to travel, just this and that. And then ask yourself this follow-up question: like what keeps you from doing that today, and why aren't you achieving those dreams today? Like what keeps me from eating healthier today? Because we always go to a Brazilian steakhouse and we're all what keeps me from traveling more today? And so I've taken action the last few years to try to travel more. And if I had half a million or if I had $500 million in my bank account, I would collect Pokemon. I would go to the shows, I'd collect sets, I'd do this or that. And so it's like if you look at what I would do in the sort of the ultimate flexibility scenario, it's like it's what I'm doing today already. It's what I enjoy already. And it's like, why would I sell what makes you happy? And like tangible items, I think relationships are the most valuable thing in this world. I think they're truly where happiness comes from. But being able to relate to people through those tangible items is kind of huge part of it. So it's like even if I made double the amount of money on what it's worth, like the happiness that I get from the hobby and life and this and that, it wouldn't be this worth the sacrifice. Like you can't even put a number on that. That's where things are lost. And everything I've achieved is completely achievable again. I don't own the 97 peak or you know what I mean. Most of the things I own are completely achievable by other people. So I hope that there's 10 people in the next 5 years that achieve what I've achieved. Like I don't think I'm in a bucket of one. I think I'm just the first one here, and I can't wait for more. It's a lot to digest, a lot to think about, but think about what makes you happy, what keeps you doing the love to do. Too deep.
That's a
No,
good answer. I like it. I
I, s-
like it.
I see Ernesto in the chat. He says, "I asked the best question. Eat it, nerds." That was a very solid question, Ernesto. um, we got your average player out here seeking financial advice. Should I dollar
Oh
cost
boy.
average into a mutual fund or dollar cost average into every booster box going forward, seeing that I'm only 19 and have some compounding years left? Um, but let me go for this one first. This one's very dangerous. Not financial advice, as always. I've made videos on this topic before of like opportunity cost. Everyone's opportunity cost is different. If you have accessible to you an employer match in a 401k, 403b, your average player, I know you're in the UK. I have no idea what those things are called over there. But in the US, 25% of our workforce in the US that has access to an employer match via 401k is not taking literally tax advantaged free money. If you're in that bucket of people, not financial advice, consult somebody else, blah blah blah. But I would personally in that situation take all the free money I can. Basically, when you go to the apple orchard, when you've got this huge apple tree and some of the apples are like nice big juicy apples within reach, the low hanging fruit. Are you gonna go get that are you gonna go get a step ladder, a rickety step ladder to climb up to the top to grab a rotten apple from the top, or an apple of unknown I don't know what ripeness or whatever? You're going to take the low hanging fruit and then work your way up. So depending on where you are in your own personal financial picture, that will define what your personal opportunity cost is, and that will start you on the path of answering that question. Me personally, with all that context taken into account, I actually do buy all booster boxes at, and that's the other aspect of the equation too. Are you talking about paying full retail through Pokemon Center? Are you talking about buying through your distributor at wholesale pricing? Or today, you can actually buy for cheaper than I can on eBay.com or whatever other website. There are actually boxes going that are 6 months old, 4 to 6 months old, going for less than wholesale cost was. So many factors that go into it, and no one can answer it for you. Unless Zach or Nick can. Maybe they can. I shouldn't speak for them.
I mean, go ahead, Nick. I'll let you talk for a little bit.
Uh, I was gonna say I agree with Dan. I think you should be, if your employer has matching, definitely take advantage of that. And even if they don't, definitely start putting some money away for retirement in like those traditional avenues. But I, at the same time, I do think modern sealed could do well long term. And I've started putting more modern sealed away for myself. So I would say a combination of both. Obviously, the Pokemon stuff is a lot more fun too than just having money from your paycheck go into a 401k or whatever. So if you enjoy it and you think it'll do well long term, which I do, I would say go for it. But definitely take care of the other priorities first. Don't be putting all your money into Pokemon and nothing into in actual retirement account.
Man, I'm gonna play devil's advocate here, but I feel like I shouldn't after hearing that last part from Nick.
Oh, let's
Um,
hear it. Let's hear it, Zach.
oh man, I think there's a lot of like key points there, and yeah, risk freeze, you can't lose there. All the money that I've made in sports, I would have done better in Pokemon. I've got a number of sports cards I bought under 1,000 on paper, 5, 10, 50,000, like things have gone well. But if I would have put everything in what you know, and generally like when it comes to trying to make that, like if you're a business owner, you're going to do extremely well. If you're an expert in a field, you're going to outperform the market. At least you should if you're an expert in the right. If you're doing a traditional investment, through like S&P, this and that, you should make the market average. And so, like the devil's advocate approach is like, you have like a 3% match your employer, like you're only going to make 3% on whatever you're putting in. But if you're consistently as an expert in Pokemon making 20%, plays or 10% plays, or maybe you break even on 5 plays, but you have one play that makes 100% often, averages out to 20%. That I mean, I would say, even though you can make a free 3% here and it's safe, this and that, like if you look at sort of the big picture and you can make 20-30% consistently and you can rotate that capital, have a shorter time horizon, like, I would say that maybe that's a better play. But then again, you, like Nick said, you put all your risk in one market, you're subject yourself to kind of what if the whole market comes down, this or that. And the other sort of key consideration, like the counter argument to this, is people that do put their money in 401ks, this or that, they don't have that money. So I know a lot
Mhm.
of people, if they got $100 in checking, they're going out to eat. If they don't have $100 in checking, they're not going out to eat. I was one of those people in college. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, I can buy pizza this week. I can go get $5 Little Caesars pizza. But if I don't have the $5, I'm gonna sit at home and eat ramen because I got a 24 pack of ramen to make sure I don't go hungry. Like that's what college was. And so you have to think about the behavioral finance. All that. My counter argument to that is, yeah, it's a free 3%, but if I can take that 5K and make 20%, 5 times this year, like that a better play. So just trying to talk about all the different considerations.
And just for some important semantics, every company match is different, but like it's 100% on 3% of your salary. So yeah, it's not like 3% because in everywhere is different. Where I used to work, it was you put in 1%, you would get like 1% matched 100%, and then you'd get 3% profit sharing. So you could actually say you made 50 grand in a year, you could put in $500 into your 401k and you would get a free $2,000 added on top of that. And there 25% of the people in my company shunned a free, like that was a free 5x, turning 500 into 2500. Again, I have a video about it where I rant on it. I don't need to rant on it in a live stream too much extra, but it's all your own personal finance is very personal. Everyone's situation is different. Uh, it's usually not like black or white. Like this is the optimal for everyone universally. It's always there's some in between. Uh,
I'll turn my volume up.
I saw somebody say
Crank it up.
your audio might be a little bit choppy. You've been coming through loud and clear for me. Hopefully, it's all making it through to the stream fine. Max wants to know, Zach. So for anyone who doesn't know, I think everyone does know. Zach has all the PSA 10 first edition unlimited, all of the Watsi hollows in PSA 10, but you're still missing like a couple reverse hollows here and there. I think you have everything non-hollow, correct? And I guess what I was gonna say, you have where do you maintain the list? If anyone wants to help you, if anyone may have some of these cards, where can they find that list to reach out?
Yeah, I can drop you a link to this if you want, but I keep a live list on E4 of kind of the main things I'm looking for. That way, it's on the internet. I can just pull it up anywhere, this or that. And then what I do is I have the live list from E4. Then I have an Excel sheet that I use to track sort of things. And then the Excel sheet, I have different like things like PWCC. Is it at home? Is it like in this storage place? This or that. And then on top of that, like when you go to register things with set registry, like someone else may own that certain number or this or that. So even though I own it, I possess it, it's in my long term, whatever. Like set registry may say, oh, you have to send a picture of this or that. So it's like set registry is by far like the last place it gets updated. And that may take 3 months to update even after you LP. And so the actual like collection itself, and yeah, I'll send you a link right now on Discord. But the actual collection itself, I have all the hollows, as mentioned. It's first edition unlimited for Wizard of the Coast. Wizard of the Coast is base, first edition Chalice unlimited, fourth print. All the different variants. Gray stamp, this, that, all the way through Sky Ridge, and then I have all the non-hollow rares except for like 3 1992,000 fossil rares, which are sort of a niche exclusive, kind of hard to find thing. And for context, I'm offering $1,000 a card for and I don't even have the highest public offer on those cards. And then for the uncommons and commons, I'm around 75 to 80% of sort of the whole Watsi run. It's just like 20 random Gym Heroes cards, and unlimited. It's like all these random, and I just wait for them to come up at auction, or I might send it off, get graded here and there. And then for the E Series Reverse, I just completed Expedition E Series Reverse about a month ago. Last card I needed actually came up while we were in Japan. It was Skarmory. So like completing that set's like unbelievable. Like that's insane. Um, Flopless, I'm missing 3 reverse hollows out of the 140 plus reverse hollows. And Garage, I'm missing like 6 or 7 reverse hollows. Um, think 6 right now. So it's like, it takes time. I think it's easy to complete a set 80-90% of the way. And it's like, oh, you're missing T17. Oh, you're missing, Lugia. And it's like those last few cards just take a long time. It's just kind of the fun part of the journey. Finding people to kind of help you along. It's all the friends that make it worth, in my opinion.
The real PSA registry is the friends we made along the way.
Yeah, I wish you could put that in the registry, like where these cards came from. I'd be like, Pokemon Master 556 sold me this card. You know.
I'd be in there a couple
I'd love
times.
it. Oh yeah, definitely. I think you're well aware of the. And the thing is, like when you sell me like a low pop or hard to get card, I'll pay you like what I think like what we think is fair, but we really don't know. Like if that's like 5 years from now, that could be a 10x card, or like I think the card I bought recently from you, I paid my full ask on it. That same week, I actually bought it at auction at like a fifth of the cost. And so I think when we did that deal like 6 months ago or something, but it was literally like, I just never know where things go.
Yeah, those low pop niche things can really fluctuate a lot, and some of the ones we did recently was actually facilitated through like a big consignment that I'm going through with somebody. But could go either way on those, yeah. L Dubs wants to know any plan to get into Japanese. I think Zach, you do. You do get into Japanese with the bulk buying that you're doing, right?
Yeah, so 2016 or so, or maybe 2015 is when I really got into it. Really started collecting Core promos. Got a lot of them at a great price, and recently the promos I picked up have been pretty substantial prices. I think the last one I paid was, okay, or that's a big range, but it's like around that 5K mark, for them. And so I've got 3 of those left. I think getting the set cards on Watsi for Japanese is pretty easy. Like I don't think you should be overpaying for Destiny. You got to remember you get one holo in basically every pack of Watsi, minus like a couple sets in the front and the back of that. Um, so like you have to also, when you collect, you have to prioritize. Like when people are like, "Hey, how do I build a set?" I'm like, "Well, for this set, Skyridge, you should probably buy the Skyridge Charizard first, the Crystal Zard, because when that card was like $500, it's like that card going to 5,000 prices you out, but if you get it at 500, you can buy the rest of the cards, and so like it's every set kind of has its own strategy to achieve, and I think for a lot of sets, you just got to chase the big card first and fill in the more available. There's so many cards out there that even if you have the money, you can't buy it. And those are the cards you should put at the top of the bucket when you're trying to complete.
When you've
I've
I was gonna ask you, Nick,
oh, go ahead.
when you've pursued collection goals, have you? Because I've seen pretty reasonable, rational arguments for each. Like get most of the pieces you can, or go for that big one first. A lot of it comes down to preference, as far as like mathematically which one is proved out to be true more often than the other. That one's really hard to get into. But yeah, what's been your strategy, Nick?
I've always liked going after the quantity first and then the quality stuff. So like when I was doing my binder sets, I would always get like the common, the uncommon sets, and then all the cheap hollows. And then when I was finally out of cards to get for that set, or those sets, that's when I would go for like the more expensive cards, the Lugias, the Typhlosions, the Charizards, all that stuff. Just I felt like you had more incentive to complete the set when you're only missing those 1, 2 cards versus, okay, now I have those first 2 cards that are the most expensive, but I'm missing everything else. Um, that's just always been the way that I've looked at it. I like seeing those binders making progress than just having 1 or 2 cards inside. Mm.
I've generally gone the quantity over quality route too, but there's definitely been some times where it kind of bit me. I can't remember exactly like what cards in what set, but years back, Collector Boy Dan had a lofty goal of like PSA 9 everything, and yeah, I can't remember the specific instances, and there were several times where like I remember having a patch together PSA 9 base first edition set, and I don't believe I had a Charizard yet. And then I ended up buying the whole set from Gary. So had I individually bought the Charizard, it probably would have worked out to, in hindsight, had been suboptimal to like buy the Charizard last, because there was kind of a tailwind to all the pricing in the hobby at the time. And yeah, like mathematically, it probably would have worked against my favor. But then I just went out and bought the whole set from Gary. I mean, kept the ones that I thought were cleaner, and so it kind of invalidated the whole thing because I just like acquired it through a solid flip, anyways. But I feel like as many times that you find that, especially with the price movements we had over the last couple years, if you had started with like, hey, in 2021, let me grab that Charizard first, and you paid 400K, you'd be in a more painful spot than if you had bought like the Alakazam and the Clefairy and like maybe 5 or 6 of the smaller ones. But that's only because the price went down like fairly drastically in that time frame. So depends on if the prices are going up or down, and it just depends on a lot of different factors.
Yeah, and the Charizard's more available too. That's it's kind of a counter example.
Yeah. Uh,
That is awesome.
Chat's wildin'. Yeah, they're always here to hang out. Trying to find the next question. Here we go. So Zach actually went to Worlds, Nick and myself didn't, but what will be the best merch investment from Worlds 2023 that doesn't include cards? You make any
Oh
big
man.
plays?
No, I think the easy answer for everyone was the decks. Like I just got the decks. So, like you get one per trip, and I went twice. I got a deck, and I had a friend with me that got a deck, and he kept it. So it's like okay, like sure, keep your deck. I think when it comes to the merch, like I mean, I love these jerseys. They sell out every time, and I intentionally bought a slot that was sort of before like when most other people got, and I just got a couple of the jerseys just so I could wear them day while I was there. A lot of people are loving the plushies and stuff, but people don't realize how expensive it is to get things back from Japan. And like, yeah, you can throw things in your suitcase, but like, okay, you brought 3 Lapras plushies because they're so huge. And so like when you see like the things like Lapras plushies on eBay for like $100, like in my mind, I'm like, okay, they probably paid so much to ship it back. Like they're probably still breaking even. Like I really didn't see too many plays that were just like even plays. The sleeves are a market that I just don't. I'm not like an expert in, but I know a lot of people make a lot of money in different like sleeves markets. I mean, you see people from Japan that would fly to Worlds every year in the U.S. and they would only bring sleeves, and they would crush it. And I think a lot of that was because the arbitrage between the Japan market for English sleeves and the Japanese market for Japanese sleeves or whatever it may be. So they're just kind of swapping sleeves back and forth. But you're willing to take a flight and spend every second of a show like in the trade area. Like to me, that like blows my mind. So there's something there going on with sleeves that I just don't quite understand. And I think sleeves also take longer to mature. Like we talked earlier about 151, maturing in like 5 years or so, probably 3 years. If you're giving the short guess. But there's something there with sleeves that's pretty profitable. I think the same thing with the play mats. Um, I've been like 6 in Japan and still like working through stuff. So sorry about that. Just I ran out of medicine on Sunday and gotta make my own concoction at home to figure it out. But I don't know. I mean, Nick. Well, I guess you guys you guys didn't go to Worlds, but like when I think of like plays that are like non cards that are things that are there. I mean, you can buy plushies. There's Worlds exclusive stuff which you can only buy at the place, but there's also Pokemon Center stuff at the Pokemon Center, and I would recommend no one buy that stuff because generally you can buy it online for the same price. I bought like one like Rayquaza playmat or something I thought was cool. It's because I could grab it right there at the convenience. Like, sure, I'll pay the extra $5 or whatever the conversion was to do it. Um, yeah, but I can't. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I can't think of anything that'd be like actually worth it. Playmats are cool, but they take a while. But I don't know. Is there anything you guys have noticed or thought of that maybe I'm missing?
Not really. Personally, I really like getting the sleeves and the playmats as like a just like a
Yeah.
memento. I think those are really cool, and they kind of like highlight the location and the year and stuff like that. So those are the things that I always like to pick up.
did get you guys some. They have a bunch of cool Yokohama packs and like boxes and like things like that that were really cool, and they all had cookies inside. So I got you guys some cookies, and I will eat all three here, just and I'll let you know how it tastes, so you guys can make sure you.
Yeah, appreciate you including
There
us
we
on that.
go.
I should have brought them to Charlotte, but I didn't think about it. Like someone told me the cookies expired in like October. I was like, oh man, I gotta open these cookies and eat them. So I started smashing some cookies. Probably like also why maybe I'm not feeling the best. And it's like I should have just brought them to you guys because I had a couple boxes of. They have like figurines and they had some cool cups and stuff. Like one thing that was sold out I didn't get was like a really cool. I think it was like a ramen bowl or a cool like little like whiskey glass or something. I didn't get a skateboard. I had a skateboard in London that I still have sealed, just in storage right now. And it's like, it would have been sick to get a Yokohama one, but I'm not paying 2 grand for a skateboard. Like, I just don't see that price going up ever. But yeah.
I I thought about collecting one of each of the world's playmats. I don't know why exactly, but I really do like the playmats. One of those Some of those early world ones though are fairly expensive. So a lot of the things I collect, I do it because I value them more than the market does. But once you get into the more expensive playmats, it really isn't true there. But every worlds I've attended, which is Nashville in 2018 and then DC in 19, I do intend to pick up, like Nick said, as like a souvenir, as a memento, whatever, that year's playmat. So I'm not going to go back and collect the whole run, but I will buy them for every year that I go. But sadly, 2024 Hawaii is probably not going to be in the cards for me.
And I haven't like put these out yet. Mat that I use at one of these mats.
The 2 player ones,
So
those are awesome.
yeah, it's like a
Oh,
marker.
cool.
But it's like when I look at where I record, like play mats, I was like, so it's gonna fit, regardless. The table I use is big, so I don't use like a table.
Yep.
You got to put a monitor, this and that. So I thought these were really, really cool. Got like 151 too, which is kind of cool. So I'll put that on one of the tables here, just to you get all the different Pokemon on there. But this might be hard to actually see if you're recording on it. So many distractions in the background. If you And white playmats don't show card quality that well either. That's why I'm probably gonna land on a dark one. Maybe use this one for like
Hmm.
a mass amount. But something else cool about Japan though is like they have so many cool like candies and treats and things you never see. So like one of my favorite things, they had these little grape things that were like ice or something, and like you just munch on them and they're so sweet, they're really good. And one thing a lot of people know is like they have like the flavored Kit Kats there. So it's like you have strawberry Kit Kats, which are like kind of nuts. So I brought a box of these back for my mom. I got to give it to her when I see her. But some of these are sick. So move close to the mic. Okay, I will swallow the mic for you guys. Sorry.
Yeah, I don't think I have the ability to turn you up individually in here. I might, but I am not wanting to destroy everything entirely.
You can turn me on.
Um, Here we go. We got a question from NP Pokemon. Hey Zach, thanks for hopping on and thanks for the Mario Pika deal. If you collected anything not Pokemon, what would it be? Would you go as hard? Been watching you since the traded cards by mail, bought cards by mail video days.
Oh man, I think I didn't start Pokemon right when I got out of college. I tried a bunch of different things, and Pokemon just hit the nostalgia, all the good memories, and it just I just loved it. And I also really love the Harry Potter stuff, so I have a bunch of that I've been sitting on for a long time, and I've got a bunch of raw that's like ready to get graded, and I think I want to like pick the grading company to send it to. Like, I don't want to pay 14 bucks a card at PSA, but grade with CGC with a dealer rate like is pretty attractive. And so I just know that when I do that, it's going to be like a pretty decent investment because like we're set collectors. Like I can't just grade one card. I got to grade the whole set. And so it's also like when you see Harry Potter and like CGC, like is it what I mean? Like all of it's going to be CGC. You know what I mean? You can put
Mhm.
like a registry or something like that. Um, so I would probably say that just out of like enjoyment, I guess you could say. I got a lot of that sealed I bought way back when, and mostly when I picked it up sealed, it was for under $100 a box, like $60 a box for base Harry Potter is what I was paying. That was on eBay back when Quidditch was 25, $30 a box. And I opened it because it felt like I was opening Watsi. It literally felt like I was opening like, Neo Destiny or, Neo Genesis or something like that. Because it was made, between 2002 and maybe 2001 and 2003, maybe 2002, 2003. I got to double check. But at the same time, they were making Neo. So like when you open a Harry Potter box, it feels like you're opening up Pokemon. It really does. So I would say that out of enjoyment. I don't know if I'd say that out of investment, if that's what you're asking, but just something I would find enjoyable. I mean, I do enjoy MetaZoo. I know that's kind of a very taboo topic, but I enjoy it because I don't know that much about it. And I love opening a hollow and then trying to figure out what it is. Is it rare, this or that? And, I have some, sample cards. I think the Caster Cup stuff's pretty good as far as just holding, they're going to have their second tournament coming up, but like, I'm not buying MetaZoo as if like I'm going to retire on it. I'm buying it because like when I crack a box, like I think I enjoy it. You know what I mean? I find it enjoyable. So
I also enjoy MetaZoo.
basic. Oh man, there he is. That's awesome.
Yeah, you knew
You
Basic
you
was gonna.
summoned basic with your
Yep,
Metazoo talk.
yep.
Oh,
Um,
basic appears.
that's funny. And I guess I'll touch on. I know it was directed towards Zach, but I've got my Steins up there. I've got my Schultz and Dooley Steins. I've got coins that I would love to get back into at some point. But it is really interesting how, at least in coins and Steins, I'm sure this goes on in a lot of things, but a lot of the same debates and a lot of the same things that go on in Pokemon, modern versus vintage. With coins, there's grading. With Steins, we're not there yet. Hopefully, never gets there. But a lot of the same arguments and debates and things that go on in Pokemon has their analog over in different hobbies as well. It's just really interesting to look at them and draw comparisons between them. One thing that goes on, it's almost like a version of serialized because a lot of the Steins were a lot more popular currently today, like a much older demographic, and new people aren't getting into it in the same way that they are Pokemon. But a lot of the early first edition, like Watsi equivalent stuff, was very, very high print run. You're talking a few thousand of each Stein made. Today, it's not very popular at all. They're only making 150, 250 of some of these ultra modern Steins. Some of them are actually like serialized. They just do it via a Sharpie on the bottom, 1 out of 1,000, 2 out of 1,000. But it's really interesting to hear and see people argue about why XYZ should be more valuable than it is. But no, this should be more valuable because it's new and who cares about the old stuff and it's more limited and blah blah blah. It's really funny.
And chat just loves your Steins, man.
Yeah.
I'm pumping up the Stein market, Dan.
I mean, hey, go check go check out Schultz and Dooley Steins.
For me, it would be the coins. I was into that before Pokemon, and then Pokemon kind of took over. And I was doing a little bit of both, and then Pokemon completely took over, and I haven't done much with the coins since. Got back into it a little bit recently, but still mainly Pokemon stuff. It's just tough to keep up with more than one thing at a time. Pokemon takes up so much time. It's tough to get back into anything else.
Yeah, I hear
Yeah.
that for sure.
And talking about keeping up with Pokemon, I mean, how many places do you have to check all the time now? Like, I think of someone's name and I'm like, oh, I need to go check that website because I know that person checks that website all the time. And it's like, I mean, do you log on and just go through like 20 websites every day just to see? And like, I know there's all these like little tricks and things you can do that, like auto alert you and things, but like, I mean, like when we were in Japan, like I didn't check PWCC every week. For me, PWCC takes a couple hours to check because mostly you're just waiting on the page to load. But also, I like looking at everything because the best finds are not going to be the ones that are obvious. The ones that are obvious
Yep.
usually get priced to market pretty quickly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a
that's
very platform arbitrage has always been a thing and always will be because there's heritage, there's gold and PWCC, there's eBay, and then there's like just random people doing Instagram stories and Facebook posts, and there's so many markets out there, and no one possibly can keep up to date on all of them, so things fall through the cracks.
yeah. I mean, do you want to switch over to Heritage and talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, we may as well. I will share my screen. Let's see if I can get this. Okay, I got it.
So Tetra, I mean, not to keep shouting out next gen TCG, but Tetra and I talked a lot about this, and I don't know if he'll post that today or tomorrow, or we'll see. But long story short, like basically Heritage has a massive auction block with a ton of like grails of different sets, and if you want to search by Pokemon just to filter it out, or I mean, you can just scroll down the
There
Pokemon
was a
section.
little
That
bit of
works
magic
too.
at the start, but yeah, now I'm scrolling through mostly Pokemon.
Yeah, but it's one of those things where like a good indicator of the market and a good indicator to see like how people value certain things is, as humans we're relational people. We always try to, you think of this, then you think of that. Like we have conversation, we're just guided through things, and so the key part about this heritage thing is they have a lot of different like sort of peaks of different items like E17, Lugia, first ed base, Illustrator, even like test prints like the Cosmos, CGC 8 Zard. And so like if you're trying to figure out like, oh, how does Lugia relate to like a T17? This auction will be like a really good indicator of like seeing like how the market buys them against each other. Yeah, there's a
Mhm.
lot of other factors like, oh, this Lugia looks scratched or this T17 looks perfect, or this or that. Like there's other factors at play there. But like one of the hardest things to do is to take like the unrelated things and see like through the weeds and all this how they related. Like how often does the if you're into stats, like how correlated are these items? And so very rarely do you get a lot of things on one platform that are all sort of like the key pieces, being from Illustrator all the way down to like no symbol Jolteon, which I would consider to be like probably one of the lowest sin cards in this, but important to me, I guess you could say, for a CDC 10. So I'm extremely interested in this auction. If you followed me for a long time, you probably know which cards I'm chasing, and you could probably figure out which cards I'm bidding on pretty easily. It's not all of them; it's a kind of a select few of them. But I'm super interested to see like the market for a Blastoise CGC 10 that's currently bid at $4,300. Like, how does that relate to something else? So I know I'm rambling here, but any thoughts just on that kind of key market sort of like just data point?
One thing that I know that's
I'll be
come.
curious.
Oh, go ahead, Nick.
Go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
I was just gonna say I'll be curious to see like how all these CGC 10s actually do
Yeah.
compared to PSA. It'll be really interesting because there are a lot of key cards. So it'll be a really interesting auction. And then I'm definitely most excited about the Illustrator. See where that ends up. I am
Well,
not a bidder on that card, but it'll be really interesting to see where it ends up.
I do not have an illustrator, so I have a bid that's if it sells for this price, I would love to add it to my collection.
Mhm.
We can talk about that in a little bit, but I see Rusty's in chat, and Rusty and I talked about a very specific card this weekend. He's very interested in, so I won't say that card on stream just out of respect for you, Rusty. But it is going for a great price right now. So I hope you win, and I'm sure you'll let me know if you win at the end of the auction. By the way, these end 2 days left. These end on Saturday, and the
Mhm.
crazy thing is like rare candy auctions are also going on, and they have like a crazy selection of Japanese. So what's interesting is the auctions like aren't really competing with each other because you have the English and then you have the Japanese, which the high end Japanese guys typically aren't the English buyers, and the high end English like they dabble in Japanese, but they usually get outbid by the true Japanese buyers, if you know what I mean, the people that just really drive that market up. So they almost like keep market minimums on Japanese, if you know what I mean. So
Mhm.
two massive auctions this weekend, and they kind of are completely like they almost like don't interfere with each other's buyer pools, which is blows my mind.
I know shortly before we went live late this morning, I actually listened to a recent Rusty video where he kind of talked about where he's at collection wise. He has a lot of stuff in the PSA registry. and he's almost feeling like torn. And you should go watch videos, Rusty. Don't let me talk on behalf of him. Sorry, Rusty, if I paraphrase you incorrectly. But one thing we constantly find ourselves saying is like, buy the card, not the grade, buy the card, not the holder, not the label, whatever. And I know one thing that's coming. It's like, oh, the last PSA 10 sold for X, and this CGC 10 sold for this price. I mean, you can look at the history of Pokemon, and you can look at subsequent listings of PSA 10s, one over the other, selling for 50% discount to the last one. I mean, depending on when some of the last sales were, they may have been more during the boom, and so naturally the prices are expected to fall. But in any instance, if you truly are buying the card for what it is, like, it doesn't even make sense that cards would just have one fixed price. Like, there are definitely cleaner examples and weaker examples of any card in any given grade. And to me personally, like years back when I was when I was full collector boy Dan, I just personally, my budget, my preferences as a collector, 9 was the sweet spot. 9 was just the sweet spot, and I try to buy like the better 9s. I try to buy the better 9s, and I always found like it blew my mind. 2 9s could be on the market. Recent solds were all in a certain range. Low lists were all in a certain range. Some of them would be stand out, like this is just way cleaner. And I've heard certain things. I'm not going to share like specifics on certain cards compared to others, and but a lot of these cards selling in whether it's PSA, BGS, CGC cases, if you were to crack them out and then just sell the same exact card raw, to think like how much differently the price would end, it's just mind blowing. Because there are definitely certain examples where cards take multiple times to achieve the grade that's currently on their slab, or they just clearly look like if you were to crack that out and regrade it, 9 times out of 10 it would be a 9 or an 8 or a 7 or whatever it more so should be. But it's just always fascinating. These cards don't really have any one given fixed price, and I'm probably not going to be doing any bidding personally. I'm trying to behave, and I've had a pretty good summer of behaving. I worry that if I were to venture into this auction, I might end up spending more than I want to.
Oh, be a bad boy, Dan. Be a bad
Yeah,
boy.
I'm gonna try to behave, but some of these, I'm sure, like relative to the PSA pricing, they'll probably go like pretty reasonably. I would imagine. Some more so, some less.
I mean, I think we're in a period of like extreme, just like value plays here. Even before CGC tens, the new tens hit the market. Like in my head, I mean, how do markets traditionally react to this news? Just without knowing anything about like how it's played out and just not referencing that. Everyone wants to take the cash today. So the people who sold their 9.5s at 9.5s did like the best. And the people who are flooding the market in tens are seeing the prices just get pounded and dropping. And you have a mix of like people who only collect PSA, they don't care about CGC, that are not going to be your buyers in the CGC tens. And so you're literally taking the CGC 10 buyers and you're just draining them of cash. And it's a situation where we're going to have some pretty like low prices on a lot of these things, and they're going to be value plays. Like people want tens. The CGC 10 rate is lower than the PSA 10 rate. I'm not saying that all CGC 10s are, they do have higher like tier. There's so much to get into there, but long story short, like I think that these will go for a discount to kind of like what their long term value is going to hold. I think that they'll absolutely sell below a PSA 10. But when you look at a lot of them now, there's a lot of them that are below PSA 9 prices. And like that to me makes like no sense whatsoever. So, long story short, like I think, the CC 10s came out, the dip happened, everything goes low. I think we're in that period of like the low point, and the market's going to stabilize and things are going to come up. So there's someone, I can't share their name, but it's a story that's been told to me recently. They wanted to buy PSA 10s, but they ultimately, and this is a 5-figure buyer, well, 6-figure buyer, but they basically said that the value proposition for CGC 10s was so strong that buying a PSA 10 at what the market considers to be a peak price, premium price, doesn't necessarily make sense because they could buy multiple of the CGC 10s at that same price, hold it for a period of time. And then if the CGC 10s just go to 50% of PSA 10s or 75% of PSA 10s, but they just get closer. It's like, it's just a pure just value play, which is insane. Um, so I think there's going to be a lot of deals in this auction. I mean, the only other factor to consider on whether or not you take the play or not is what do you think the market economy is going to go? Like, what do you think the macro economy is going to go? So I think a lot of people probably know, like, if I really believe in, Google, I'm going to buy it as a stock. If the whole market goes down, it doesn't matter if Google's doing good, Google's going to come down. You know what I mean? So it doesn't matter if CGC 10s are a good play. If the whole market comes down, they're going to come down. You know what I mean? So that's I think the big question you have to ask yourself before you make a play like this is, if you think the outlook for Pokemon is grim, you probably want to hoard cash. You probably want to hold on to a little bit. But if you think Pokemon during the holiday season is going to be strong, because you're going to get, once you buy these cards, you're going to get them in time for holiday season. You can probably have all these cards on eBay by October or so if you wanted. So I just think there's going to be a ton of deals, but I'm mostly interested in how all the different cards relate to each other. So someone tell me I'm wrong. I want to hear some pushback in the chat.
One of the big pieces of pushback.
I think you're right. I think it's going to take a long time for any type of movement to happen with CGC pricing. I think people are. It's too soon after CGC changing their grading scale and upgrading all these 9.5s to 10s. But there's going to come a point where people just forget about that, and more and more people start collecting CGC over PSA. Now that the 10s are actually obtainable. But I think it's just going to take a long time for that move to happen. But I do think it could happen at some point.
And one of the big pieces of pushback that I often hear, and to be fair, I can almost guarantee some of these CGC 10s were PSA 9s in a former life. But that said, some PSA 10s, many PSA 10s even, many PSA 9s, if you were to crack them out, could ultimately become PSA 10s. Many CGC 10s could become PSA 10s, vice versa. But many PSA 10s, if you were to crack them out and regrade them 100 times, more often than not, they'd be 9s, and sometimes they'd even be 8s. I'm not saying that universally of all 10s, but like the lower the pop of the card, the harder it is to grade. Generally speaking, those cards are just more likely living on a border. Like we see 9s and 10s as two distinct buckets, but it's more of like a continuum, more of a spectrum. And some people think that it's been tightened up over the years, and some people think that certain eras it was harder or it was easier. Whatever your thoughts on that are, the fact remains that cards quality exists on a spectrum, and the PSA grader has they have a binary option, right? They can either put it in the 10 bucket or in the 9 bucket. We as, to be frank, like kind of crazy collectors, those ones that just fall in the 10 bucket, even if out of 100 times they might fall in the 10 bucket only 50 times, and there might be one in the 9 bucket that would have fallen into the 10 bucket 80 times. So kind of in many ways like a stronger card. We're never going to spend more money on the 9 because the label says 9 on it. But even if there are 10s out there that only would have been 10s 1 out of 100 times, and they just so happen to be on their first pass. They just got lucky. I've graded some of those. I've sold some super low pop, single-digit Watsi PSA 10s over the years that were like 1% lucky on their first submission. And, the market didn't care that much. They paid the big premium, and it was great. But it's just always funny to hear about, oh, this company, that company. Ultimately, the cardboard is the cardboard, and 50 years from now, who knows what the landscape will look like. And my personal thing, like, I'm not investing in cards, but if I were, I would do my best to buy the cleanest cards, regardless of case. I would just do my best at making sure they were real, but buy the cleanest cards you can towards the top end of the spectrum in whatever case gives you the best price. And especially some of these instances where you can get 5 or 10 of a certain card in the grade below or the grade near. 5 years, 10 years, 20 years down the line, if you have to crack it out and grade it with a different company to sell it for the most premium, like that's always a thing. That's always a play. If you're getting clean cards at good prices, you're probably going to be doing well.
I gotta tell you my favorite example. What does a PSA 9 first edition Charizard go for base set?
Like 20.
18K,
Yeah, 18,
roughly.
20. Yep.
Yeah, 20K. Yeah. So like maybe cash price 18, PayPal 20. But like think about what the PSA 10 goes for. I know we're gonna talk about it in a little bit, but over 200, 200 something, and then what does a CGC 10 go for? we've seen 160K sale, we've seen multiple 80s, we saw a low of 40. So like if you buy the CGC 10 at 40 and like all of a sudden these stop popping up because everyone stops dumping them and the market's like, well, 160 was crazy, but 80, 90 is like pretty good. You just doubled your money. Like, is a PSA 10 gonna go to 400, 500 before like a CGC 10 goes from 40 to like 80? Like, no, not a chance. So it's one of those things that's like, I think the market has unilaterally decided that CGC 10 should be priced higher than PSA 9s. I've
Mhm.
been at CGC where I have new cards that I've said, hey, can you grade this? And they come back nines, 9.5s. And the cool part about um just having doing a lot of business CGC. Sometimes if you go there in person, they'll give you like a great customer service, this and that, and you can ask. I mean, you can't ask about every card, but you can say, hey, like why did this 5K card get a 9.5? And well, it has a print line here. We turn on the back, has some roller sheets here, and actually you don't see this, but there's this here. And so like you can't like milk that and do it for every card. But if you're like genuinely like not just shitting on them all day every day, and you go in there ask a question, like you probably at least get some feedback. They're not big enough to where they've kind of cut out the customer service. Where as that's not something I feel like I could do with every grading company. So hearing some of that feedback directly actually has helped me sort of say, okay, well, if I were to grade I think the 9.5s to 10s may be a different example because they kind of godfather to the men. But if I didn't get a 10 on a card that I thought maybe should get it, that maybe wasn't a PSA 10, but it was a PSA 9, and I think it should be a CGC 10, but not a pristine CGC. Like it is kind of cool to hear that feedback from them, and that's happened a couple times, but not like a crazy amount of times. But it helps me like at least understand like why, you know what I mean? Then I can make better decisions when I grade, going forward. Like what will go where. And I had two cards. I sent them two staff cards from Worlds 2023, and I thought they both had a shot for CGC 10s. One of them actually got a pristine, which is crazy, and then the other one got a CGC 10. So, but the staff cards from 2023 Worlds are horribly cut. I think any high grade in those cards should have some sort of premium. I think they just I've held a ton of them, and they don't look the best in person.
Got a pre-release Clefable situation on our hands, the modern form of it.
Oh yeah. Why don't we do you want to pull up the 10 illustrator? I'm like super curious what chat thinks, like where the price is gonna end. And I don't do like live streams that often, so I love the idea of asking chat, like, where do you think this is gonna end? Because like it's one thing to know like the people that are interested, like what they could possibly bid. It's another thing to like look at all the market metrics and do like kind of the what do you call it, like the fundamentals, or whatever, just say, hey, should this end compared to everything else? But like I'm super curious, like people's different, and the buyer of this may be in chat, it may not be in chat, who knows? But I'm super curious what people think this will end at. So
Yeah, I'm gonna do my best to getting it cropped a little bit better and getting it on screen, high res front and back.
yeah. I mean, to me, the one difference here is like it's well centered. A lot of illustrators aren't well centered. It does have a swirl on the front, which I think helps it. I think on the back it has like a slight, like there is like a nick or something on the back. I think that's what keeps it from being like a perfect card. But if you look at the front, like I'm like, okay, wow, like I love this. But you look at the back, you can see like where it is. And I think some people like very much prefer like well centered cards, and some people prefer like cards without any damage. I'm in the bucket that I prefer an off center flawless card, and I think some people prefer like a well centered card with like a small like this or that.
Mhm.
PSA 4. It is not a 4. Like objectively, it's not a 4.
Yeah,
This is not Blake's card. I can confirm that.
I'm actually in the camp that I personally like when I am viewing a card, when I'm appreciating a card, I don't appreciate the back. The back of this illustrator. This illustrator shares the back with literally billions of cards. Like who cares about that? That's where I
Mhm.
come from. So I would rather have a flawless
Yeah.
front, clean hollow above all else. Centering is next for me. I do not appreciate off center cards. I personally like especially when it gets like drastically off center, it takes away from the eye appeal. It's distracting to me. So if I have a card
Yeah.
with any flaws, give me whitening, give me minor surface issues on the back. And you can see Some of it's hard to tell if it's dust or if it's this or that, but there's like a little white corner, a little white bit near the edge. And I have so many PSA 10s. I've graded so many PSA 10s of old Watsi cards, of different cards. This one along the left side, it's hard to tell because it doesn't look like it's all the way on the edge. It looks like it's in the card a little bit. That might be just something on the case or whatever. But little white dots at the corners, like, yeah, you're not going to see it live. You're going to be behind by like 30 seconds.
Yeah. I mean, that nick on the left's kind of the big thing for me.
Yep.
Mhm.
A lot of times when you look at images, like you get really good at knowing like what's lighting versus like what's something else. Because I mean, I've had cards that like the lighting is a little different, you know. Yeah, so top right, like that's another little piece here. But like so it seems like Rusty and I think a lot alike on some of these items. But for you, Dan, you're saying you'd really have well centered like with the back because you're only going to be looking at the front. You're not really ever looking at the back.
Correct. And this centering is
Whereas
pretty
for
solid, I think. The left's
yeah,
a
I think it's
tiny
really,
bit.
really good.
The left is maybe a tiny bit thicker. It almost looks like it has a slight rotation. It looks like the top left is thicker than the top right, like very minorly. And the bottom left is a little bit thicker than the top left. So it's almost like there's a slight rotation. But honestly, like, I do not have amazing eyes to begin with. If I were to own this card, if I were that rich and could afford it, I would have it like on a shelf somewhere. I heard someone make
On a
this.
shelf?
Well, if I was that rich, yeah, absolutely. Who cares?
Oh, okay.
I heard someone make a comment before that it's so weird, and it's kind of like a shame that a lot of times you'll go up to somebody with a card, and I'm guilty of this too. When someone hands me a card, they're like, "Hey, look at this card I just graded. Look at this card I just added." The first thing they do is they flip it over to the back. If you're like pre-grading a Celebrations Charizard, if you're pre-grading an Umbreon, like whatever, but when someone comes up to you with something that they're proud of and they show it, and like the first thing you do is you flip it over to the back, like I need to stop doing that as much as I have in the past. But it's really weird. Like again, if you're looking at English, if you're looking at Japanese, you're literally looking at the part that is in common with billions of other cards. Like who cares about that so much? To me, like my main test is at arm's distance. I want it to look super clean. Most nines check that box, so like that's why I always gravitated towards PSA 9s personally. Like this illustrator, we're doing the whole enhance thing. We're really zooming in on these corners. These little white things that I'm like 8,000 DPI zooming in all the way. You probably can't even hardly make those out, like whether it's a glare at arm's length. Like this card is, and I'm sure we could go through a lot of the other 10s. Like these are beautiful condition cards. These are really, really solid condition cards.
Yeah, and you got to remember, like CGC has a higher grade. Like there's no pristine illustrator out there, and so like I know we were talking. Tetra and I talked a little bit about this on Monday, but when that PSA 10 number 2 Pika sold for 444K, like and it looked faded, you know, or no, let's talk about the number 3 that was super off center, but it had like it had a high grade, and you saw how off center that was. It's like, man, that must be the cleanest looking card because for as off center as that is, and for it to still get that high of a grade, like that card must have perfect surface, perfect everything else. Because any other flaws in that card's like super low. So like when you see like something like this, and you see like it's well centered, and you do see like those 2 little spots on it on the back that you see, and it gets the 10, it tells me, okay, number one, this isn't pristine. Because if it's pristine, you can have like one defect, but you can't have because pristine isn't perfect, right? So you can have one defect, but if you have 2 defects, then it's got to be a 10. That like that top corner. Okay, do it, Dan. Do it.
Oh, you
Come
want me
on,
to go to
Dan.
the top
Oh
corner?
man, can't live today. No, but if you see like the top corner, well, actually, I'm looking at the live, so people
Yeah,
are at the
you're
audience
like
gonna be
30
off now
seconds
too.
behind me. Yeah.
All right. But anyway, you see the top corner, then you saw the edge. Like that to me, that's 2 defects, so that would still be like in the 10 range. But if the center was a little off, then maybe it's a 9.5, in today's standards. Or if there's a scratch, maybe it goes down to a 9 or this or that. So when you see like those 2 things, and then you still look and see it's a 10, to me it tells me the gloss probably has full gloss in the front and the back. It's probably there's probably no other key issues. So that's another thing I like to think about too, is like when you see a card in a grade and you can tell like what's wrong with it already, like it's like everything else must be pretty good. Um,
And
I don't
Zach,
know. Do you guys ever talk about that?
well, you're
Yeah.
seeing it live right now, but I zoomed in and I did verify that it does in fact say Gem Mint 10. And look at how pretty that look at how pretty that cert number is. I mean, all those sevens in it. That's a pretty great, a pretty cert number. Those are objective facts, right? Like everything else is subjective. How bad's the whitening? This, that. The label says 10, and I mean, they're selling the label, right?
They're
Yeah.
selling the label.
That's funny. Yeah. So I saw a lot of the prices come through. I think I saw some that are close to the current price. I think I saw like an 850. I don't think I saw anyone over a million though, which I think surprised me. So, obviously I was at the National, I talked to Heritage, and I'm somewhat familiar with the people that I think are going to be a bidder for this, that. And I truly think that the winner of this is someone not in the Pokemon space. Think that they're a trophy collector. I think there's someone that's a grail collector. There's someone who probably also owns an Alpha Black Lotus, or probably someone that also owns, Tom Brady contenders. They're probably someone that just wants to kind of, buy the blue chips of the hobby. And when you think of blue chips of Pokemon, you're either going to go with a Charizard or you're going to go with an Illustrator. And then when you get more niche, you buy a trophy or something like that. So, um, I think the top bidder probably isn't someone we talk to every day.
Yeah, and it's so like I Pokemon has done well by me. I'm doing all right in life, but I am way too broke for that card. Like for me to speculate at what that might go for, I'm so out of place. I'm so out of my depth. It's always one thing I find really funny. When that Tyler the Great Warrior card came up for Yu-Gi-Oh, when the One Ring comes up, when people who almost like what we were talking about earlier with the whole Facebook thing, people commenting, this is gonna be worth this is gonna go for that. Like, I have no place to say whether it's gonna go for 1 million or 500K or whatever, because I'm not going to factor in that decision. I do not have the bid limit at Heritage. I do not have the capital, the cash flow to make any bid over where it's already at. So, can I make some kind of a logical argument? Hey, the one illustrator went for 5.275. We've had X, Y, and Z card go for this and that. I could see times where it would go over 1 million, and I could see where it might cap out fairly close to where it's at. But in any case, it'll be interesting to see, and it's definitely an exciting auction block. It's crazy the amount of just obscene cards that we've seen come across the past couple of years. Really, really interesting to see people just throw them to a true auction and let the market decide.
6-2 to tango. So, you could have someone willing to pay 50 million for that card. But if the next highest bidder is 800K, it's going to go for 820, 850 or whatever. So
Yep.
that's the key with auctions. And, I know, Dan, you're not the biggest fan of auctions. You love the buy it now strategy. But I will say auctions over the last 3 or 4 months have been doing tremendously well. And like if you're looking to sell a card, I think the auction route actually is not a bad route for a lot of cards where that was not the answer years ago.
Yeah.
Auctions have totally changed course a lot for.
If you've got the goods, the thing is, like, the two best times to do an auction are when you've got the goods and you want to force, like, because there's probably a lot of people that reached out to this owner if they had marketed it at all, that would have just been like, hey, I'll throw this number out there, but they'll kind of like toy around with it. They'll tease the idea of it. But when you make that card go to auction, people know that card is going to sell. It gives them, it instills in them a sense of urgency. And cards of this caliber, cards of this nature, you can't just like go buy one off eBay. And then the other cards that do really well with auction, generally speaking, are cards with just like supreme liquidity. You're not gonna sell a PSA 10 Celebrations Charizard or a PSA 9 base set unlimited Charizard and get like 50% of recent sold. You're almost always gonna get 70, 80, 90% of recent sold or low list because the demand for that card is just so deep. So like a Moonbreon as well. I would much rather auction a Moonbreon than auction like a super low pop E-Series reverse hollow like we were talking about earlier. I would much rather auction a PSA 10 Moonbreon than a PSA 10 Wooper reverse hollow from whatever set, just because like you're probably not going to find two people to tango on that card. Whereas there's a lot of like dealers and businesses that would just pay 60-70% of what a Moonbryon would sell for. So it's going to be bid up to that as almost like a floor of some sorts. And then you're almost surely going to have a couple collectors eyeing it that might be able to get themselves a 5 or 10% discount to market buy nows.
How you doing, Nick?
Oh, I'm doing good over here. No, auctions have been doing better lately than in the past for sure. I gotta start throwing things up as regular auctions again. I used to do a lot of that with the consignments, but now that that's slowed down, I really haven't put anything up for auction, and I gotta get back into that.
Yeah, I think the time auctions end as well too is a big factor. Like someone told me they sent some stuff to Probstein and the auctions ended like 2 a.m. in the middle of a Tuesday. And it's like, well, that probably wasn't good, you know. So I think timing of auctions is important too. And I think what they charge like 10 cents to time an auction. I've like thought like, well, you know, if you're doing, 50 auctions, like just go on and pay the extra $5 to make sure they're hitting the right time.
It's
You know,
actually
if you have
included now, I
auctions,
believe. I think they took away the scheduling
ooh,
fee. Yeah.
you're in the VIP club.
I don't think it's just for me. Maybe it is, though. I don't know. Do you know, Nick? I'm pretty sure James has talked about it before because James does like 1,000 a week or whatever. It would actually be like $100 a week for him to do it. But as far as I understand,
I think
they took that away a while ago. I think
it is for everyone.
Yeah.
I know I don't have to pay for scheduled listings anymore.
Well, hopefully we're not getting ourselves in trouble telling everyone all of our premium benefits, but I'm pretty sure that's for everybody.
Yeah.
Mr. Walrus is calling you out, man. Your auctions isn't at midnight, Dan. What are you doing?
Uh-oh.
People got to work in the morning, man.
Midnight Pacific time too.
I don't auction a ton, but when I do, I usually shoot for like Sunday night between 6 p.m. and 11 p.m. Well, I like to shoot for like between 9 and 11 p.m. Eastern, so that way you're hitting between 6 and 8 p.m. Pacific. And then I try to not
That's what I like to do
during like a major holiday or something either.
Yeah.
Here's actually an interesting question that kind of like ties in. Zach mentioned that it's fairly likely that the illustrator buyer might be someone from like somewhere else, someone that's not primarily focused on the Pokemon market only. Nest TCG asked, anyone have an idea what the market cap in Pokemon cards is? I don't even know where to start, but like adding up value of all PSA 10, 9 of all cards, plus some estimate of sealed stuff out there. I know Jake, for one of our former, shout out the Pokenomics Patreon paywall. Always got to throw in the plugs when I can. But he actually went through, if you look at the Michael Jordan 1986 Fleer rookie, one card of one player by one manufacturer. The market cap for that card, I believe, was in the low hundreds of millions for like one card. And that was at the time. I don't know what that card is standing at right now, but it's pretty easy. Like for Charizard PSA 10 first edition, what do you have? 120, 130, and they're $250-ish thousand. That's approximately $30 million if I'm doing my math right. I think 120 times 250 would be $30 million. So I mean, if you go to the PSA Pop Report, if you go to a website like TCG Fish, Pokemon Price, Pokedata, if you go anywhere that tells you the population and the price, you just multiply, right? If you could get a spreadsheet and you could do a quick sum product for all of it, the information's out there. But when you start comparing that to like sports, when you start comparing that to coins, art, I mean, there are singular paintings in the world that sell for more money than pretty much every PSA graded card ever encapsulated, or all the cards put together. It is really interesting just to think about that and think about like if Pokemon continues on its trend and 20 years from now, 30 years from now, if new generations keep getting into it and people care about it and are buying it as collector pieces, investment pieces, whatever, to think where we could be, it really is interesting. And yeah, just like I've not done it in a while, Jake's not updated it in a while, but there are singular sports cards out there that are worth more than all of Watsi combined. So just know that for whatever that's worth.
Which that is crazy to think about.
And I'm not saying
But
I'm not saying
we just get.
I'm not saying one sports
Go ahead.
card like just a PSA 10 Jordan rookie. I'm talking the whole pop of
Yeah, but
Jordan
all of
rookies.
them,
Yeah.
yeah.
I almost felt
But
like I misspoke for a
that's still
second.
wild to think about.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Shout out TCG Fish.
Yeah, TCG Fish is a crazy tool that I mean I've mentioned them on many different live streams. If you want like a one-stop shop for what does the card go for in PSA 8, 9, 10, they have BGS and CGC in there as well. They actually have I think I haven't been on there in a little bit, but for a little bit and maybe currently still the market cap database is not accessible. Card by card, you can see it, but I think you can't go in and like rank cards by market cap as of right now as I speak. I guess I can just double check that. But great.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. You almost think they would charge for a lot of this info. I mean, I'm looking at the first heads are now, and it's showing, like 240 is last PSA 10 sale price. I don't know, it's crazy.
Yeah, let me see
Average
if I
CGC
can.
10 80,000.
My internet is slowing. It is going really slow right now, but let me see if I can pull it up and show.
Loads right away for me, man. giving you a hard time.
I got that DSL,
But
yeah.
what
So
happens when we don't live in the woods, Zach? We get good internet.
there's
I'm gonna come move in with one of you guys. You don't know it yet, though.
So I don't know
What
why
was
I
the
was
first question?
doing all the estimating. So here's the base first Charizard right here on TCG Fish's website. It actually says the total PSA market cap like as of right now, and I'm assuming they go all the way down to PSA 1 even, but $64 million. So $64 million you could buy. Obviously, it's not like feasible. You can't actually go do that if you've got the capital ready, but 64 million bucks would buy you at today's market pricing every PSA graded base first Charizard. And then you can look at the unlimited, and that's 22 million. You can look at the shadowless, and you can go card by card. You can go set by set. It's a really cool thing. Whether sports has an analog to TCG Fish, I don't really know, but I'm sure that there's different things out there for sports and for coins and for all different kinds of collectibles. The comment from Nest TCG also talked about sealed. That's where you get like impossible. Like say a Skyridge box is 50K or whatever it is. We don't know how many are out there. We can always theorize and speculate, but it would be a really cool thought experiment, but we have no idea.
I gotta stop you. Someone just gifted 50 memberships in chat.
Was
like we gotta do a shout out there. I mean, for you guys.
Oh, it was. I was gonna say, was it Amplitude? It was Amplitude. Amplitude is
It was
very very generous. Let me. I'm way behind in chat, especially with that gift sub. Appreciate you, Amplitude, as always. I'm probably gonna lose a fair few questions that were asked a little over an hour ago. I apologize for that, but appreciate you, Amplitude, with the way too generous 50 subs.
That's nuts, man. That's wild. 50's like definitely buying pizza for the boys today.
Yeah, he drops them in batches of 50 often, and he's probably like 80% of our 80% of our memberships probably come through gifts from Amplitude. And that I kind of double dip a little bit too, because he gives me some on my channel and then he gives me some here too. So I appreciate you, Amplitude.
That's wild. I forgot what the first question was. The question
we were talking about market cap. Let me see if I can go back Pokemon. And find. I think that question expired. It's too far back in the chat.
Yeah, I think that'd be you could. I think you could do a good job getting graded cards. It would take a long time, but you could fairly easily try and figure that out. But then once you get into sealed product, I think it would become impossible to figure out at that point.
Yeah, I mean, market cap and liquidity are two very different topics. Like, people who check the hobby once a year, once a month, once every 6 months. So when Lily jumps up in price so much and the card's like over 5 years old, it's like how many people would have sold at 20K, 40K, 50K, 60K. It's I sold at a peak of probably over 100 at one point. So it's even like with the Michael Jordan, it sold for 800K a couple times, and then now it's down to 200. It's like because of the thousands that are out there, like how many of them would have sold, for that price point. So it's like the market cap is to me like never like a true representation of like what kind of cash could come out of it, is like just the way the market reacts and stuff. So if Zard sells for 250, you would never get 124 sales at 250. Like some would be higher, some would be lower. Then maybe fear drives people way more than greed. So people are greedy, yeah, they'll make moves on greed. But like once people start getting scared, they see like five sell at 250. Like someone's gonna be like, I better sell at 240 before it crashes, or this or that. And so like fear is gonna be a huge motivator. And I just think in any scenario where you like liquidate something, you either got to liquidate it all to one person, or you have to it's just gonna crash like pretty quick. But
Mhm.
um,
Yeah,
yeah,
definitely.
It's exactly what we saw with the Japanese waifus not
Hmm.
too long ago. Once everyone started putting them up for sale, they very quickly came back down.
oh baby,
We
oh
missed you, Dan.
you back?
I'm back.
Ah,
Um, yeah, I am so messed up now. Okay, so here's actually a comment I wanted to grab from Rusty. What do you guys think about the new CGC purse offered for registry awards? If that has been discussed, just ignore. Oh, yeah, we did not discuss that earlier. I've not even heard about that. If I'm understanding the question correctly, and obviously we have in our midst a very high ranking. Actually, you joined recently the PSA Registry Hall of Fame, they call it, right?
Yeah, yeah. So I feel incredibly fortunate to have achieved what I've achieved in the space. And part of me almost thinks like I never would have had a relationship with PSA if I wouldn't have done the set registry, because that's how they reached out. That's how they were like, oh, this guy like has a lot of cards. It's like they're the grader. Like I'm not like every card I have I didn't grade through them. Like a lot of them were bought in the secondary market. And so it's like that relationship exists. So over time. It's I've been a pretty good steward of the hobby. Try to avoid all the drama that seems to always be out and about. So I've been fortunate that they've honored me with a couple different awards, and over the years, one of the big ones being 2018 with the Charizard set that Rusty has now since got in the last couple years, and most recently they put me in the PSA Hall of Fame. And so usually you get like a pin every year for being in set registries. So you get a pin that's kind of like this, I guess you could say. Um, it's kind of like one of those pins. And then they gave me one of the Hall of Fame ones, which is kind of cool. And it's the first, Hall of Fame Pokemon person. And then one of our good friends, Peter, he passed. He was put in the Hall, or he got an award for Yu-Gi-Oh! So one of the things that we talked a lot about was we want to represent the hobby well. I think a lot of our age group is in 20s and 30s, and we just want to show, hey, we're here to stay. Kids these days are not collecting baseball cards; they're collecting Pokemon. And so, Peter and I both dressed up in a suit. We wanted to go just represent the hobby well, show people that hey, Pokemon is something to take serious. PSA is number one growth area, and so they gave me this basically this kind of custom Jolteon thing. So they wanted the award to kind of tie into a card or something that people really really like. And so I told them that Jolteon's my favorite, and they did this for me. So I'm incredibly just blessed, and very, very, I can't believe they did this.
what about your cookie? You don't still have that? That's long gone now.
The cookie right
Didn't
here.
you get one of those? Like
You got
it was like the sugar cookie that was had a picture of Charizard, like a PSA 10 Charizard.
I ate that within 20 seconds of making that picture, and it was like 3 bites. It wasn't like a nibble. It was like a gosh, I'm down in this cookie. Yeah.
Was it PSA 10
So I mean,
quality in
Oh,
in
the
taste
Jolteon's
and
cool.
in presentation?
the taste may have lacked a little. It definitely wasn't baked that morning. Let's just say that. And the picture was pretty good too. So the picture was better than the quality. But I think if you come back to the question that was at hand, the CGC registry, like I think the PSA set registry and like the thing that they don't necessarily make a bunch of money off of, but that drives people to be consistent and collect and come back to their platform. Absolutely, all the things for the collectors. The set collectors are giving them money for cards that people probably wouldn't otherwise grade. You know what I mean? So it's a way to just keep recurring business. Like best business have recurring revenue that they don't have to go check every month. It just comes in. So CGC doing a set registry or something similar is going to be just huge for them. I think it's something that'll get people sort of collecting this and that. And I've got one set on my mind that I would like to complete with them. So I've already got like at least one goal that I'd like to achieve with CGC, just to again just participate. And you have to participate in all the different parts of the market to really understand. If you aren't doing something actively, it's hard to speak on it. So you actually have to do something to experience it to kind of be more knowledgeable. That's my opinion.
Have you ever played with the registries, Nick?
What are these registry awards though for CGC? Do you know? Have you heard anything about that?
I haven't talked about it, but if there's a purse and they're going to pay, like I mean, that's a good way to get people to build sets with them. I mean, PSA, they offer really awesome dinner and free drinks, once a year, but there's no cash prize or anything for it.
That would be really cool.
It's an interesting thought. I feel like it
I
would
mean, I
be
think
a
it'd be,
it would be like a wise bit of marketing and advertising because it would put some amount of chase, it would put some amount of competition out there. I could see a lot of people giving a really negative take on, oh, CGC needs to pay people to collect their cards, blah blah blah. I know that take would be out there, but to actually put some form of a chase on it, and if done properly, and I don't know what the number would be, but I mean, Metazu kind of does this with the Casters Cup and all that, right? Metazu came onto the scene; they're doing all these big purses. Is it working for them? Like, I don't have their back end information. How much money? How much would they be selling had they not had these purses? Like, if CGC were to advertise it right and do it right, they could probably put in X amount of money and be paid back more by getting new submitters to CGC, by getting like higher secondary market prices that lead to more like primary level submissions to CGC. So it's an interesting thought.
I mean, how many people played MetaZoo in the Casters Cup because the purse was so like enticing? You know what I mean? I mean, I
Mm.
think their first Caster Cup did tremendously well because like there was a massive purse and things were going. I mean, there were people that went out of their way to learn it, this and that, and people that walked away with that money. So if they're like, you get $500 for having the top set, I don't necessarily know if that's going to motivate someone, but if they're like every year we'll give $10,000 to, the what we consider to be the toughest set, like I mean, like, you're going to see people try to chase some sets,
Hmm.
and I don't think every set has to be expensive. Like I think there's a lot of easy to achieve. There's a lot of sets that are difficult to achieve that don't cost a lot of money. I'm talking about species collectors like that. That's who I'm alluding to there.
Have you ever done anything with the registry, Nick?
I have not. No, no.
Me neither. Um,
Oh,
I
wait.
feel like back when I was like just like building my I did have a first base hollow set. And back when I was building that set, the registry was very it wasn't like it is today. It was very like dulled down. So there was really no point in doing it. And now where I don't have many graded cards, there's really no point in doing it. But it does look a lot better now.
I'm just scanning chat for the next question. We're at the portion where I think I had the illustrator up on screen. So a lot of people giving their price estimates and talking about what they prefer grading wise. One thing I do align with a lot with CGC, PSA, you can have an otherwise gem mint card with one minor surface issue. So a gem mint card with one tiny portion of the card dented or whatever it may be, and it goes right to a 6. Many times those cards at CGC can be a CGC 8.5 or something similar. I mean, maybe even a CGC 9 if it's a minute enough issue. I've personally always aligned with CGC and BGS more on how they treat surface issues and things of that nature, where yes, it should take away, but in my opinion, like eye appeal is the biggest thing. Like one of the things that immediately comes to mind is Masaki's. There are many PSA 6 Masakis out there that are otherwise mint or gem mint. And to see the issue, you have to like, I mean, from arm's length, some of them you can't even get it to show. You got to have them right up by your eye in the right light, and it's so faint. So for me personally, when you contrast and compare a PSA 6 that looks like it's been rubbed on the pavement versus a PSA 6 that is gem with one corner dent, I just think CGC handles that better to my liking than PSA. But again, like, nothing is inherently right or wrong. They're just different scales. So going back to the whole heritage review, going back to the 9 versus 10 and BGS CGC PSA, nothing is inherently right or wrong. This is all kind of arbitrary. And we just, as a market together, we cumulatively decide what the market prices of these things are. And as a collector, as a business, as however you interact in this hobby, you just want to optimize for the best experience for you, the best margin for you. So just arming yourself with the knowledge of how these different companies and their scales interact with each other, very, very important from whatever your goals are in the hobby, however you interact. It's all very, very useful, I think.
I mean, I love that there's like a balance between like the different players, and there's push and pull with each of them. Like the fact that CGC is so willing to grade so many different things, like it's forced PSA to be more acceptable to errors. Where for years you just wasted money on that stuff, and now you have a no damage nine tails. Now you have 99 2000 base. Now you have all these other things that are more open. I think some of the people that are working there also is helpful too, because they can kind of help get those things done, especially if there's like a case for it. But at the same time, like because CGC is more open to that stuff, there's also more risk that they take on with something not being legitimate. And so, like, we don't have to get into all the ins and outs here, but there's something they graded recently they probably shouldn't have graded. And so I know that that person's going through a lot of backlash, and a lot of that's kind of being handled more publicly than you would expect. But that's like the risk you take, with CGC. So I love the fact that there's a lot of things that would never be in a graded case with like an actual like authentic like label, if it wasn't for CGC. And so what's crazy is like we use graded companies as a third party like authenticator and grader to like help do transactions between people. Like I'm selling a first edition Zard that's a 6 versus an 8. We use a third party to basically say, hey, should this be 10,000 or 20,000 or whatever it may be, and that helps. It's very helpful. But at some point, like the grading companies don't have all the knowledge. They don't have all the like industry experience. They don't have like all the key people. Like they'll reach out to those people when they need to, which I also think is great. But sometimes like you have to trust yourself and your own experience. And if you look at like X and Y flash fire every day for like 5 years, you're probably going to be the most knowledgeable person XY flash fire than like anyone else in the hobby. And like you're probably the expert, and like you should probably trust yourself more than like other people on that. And so even though you use them as sort of a way to mediate the unknown between transactions, it's okay to not rely on them 100%. It's okay to use yourself to make more sound decisions. So just keep that in mind. They're not the end all be all, but they can help bridge those more gaps. Any thoughts there, guys? Tell
What do
me
you
I'm
think,
wrong.
Nick?
I love it.
No, I think I do. I think grading is very important, and as much as people shit on like the stuff that's misgraded, I think overall we wouldn't have seen we wouldn't have seen 2020 and this boom that happened then without grading. I think grading is very, very important, and I don't think the hobby would be anywhere close to what it is today without grading.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
the grading company's job is to be just an unbiased third party opinion on the condition. Well, one, an objective opinion, an objective fact on the authenticity or not. And I think they do generally a good job at that. Obviously, historically, there's been some issues with every company encapsulating some things they shouldn't have. But when you grade millions or tens of millions of things, it's kind of bound to happen eventually. But as far as the subjective third party opinion, unbiased on condition, I think they do like a good enough job on it. Just me personally, where I'm at, I don't value the opinion as much as the market. Like sometimes a week 10 will get through and then the market will be mad at PSA when I mean PSA doesn't necessarily promise that like everything is always going to be perfect and it's all absolutes and objective facts. We are the ones who set the market prices, right? Like PSA didn't tell everyone PSA 10 base versus Charizard has to be 250K and the 9 has to be 18K. The market did that, right? And yeah, it's an interesting thought though, and I think overall for what they do a good job at it. But I just don't put as much value on the top grade as many do, so I sell those and I buy something else. It's like just optimize for you where you find the value, and you'll be doing fine.
There's a couple questions in chat, but there was one that popped up. And your average player, how do you guys feel about the new classic product release at Pokemon at 400 MSRP? Can we just shit on that product real fast? And I can throw a
What?
link in chat.
I
Dan,
love that product.
Here we go. Here
okay,
we
okay,
go. You
all
shit on it,
right, all
Zach, and
right.
then
So
Nick and I'll argue with you.
okay, I'm sure it's a great product. I'm sure it'll go up long term, this and that. But like you look at that product, these cards are not playable. Like you can't play them anywhere. You get basically three decks, Zard, Venusaur, Blastoise. They have a little text at the bottom, which to me looks different. You get three cards and you get some like playmat thing, this and that for $400. You get a chess set with like metal that's beautiful, this and that from the same Pokemon store for way, way more. Like when I look at that, I feel like you're paying $400 for them to print cardboard of like three popular Pokemon that are reprints. Like to me, like unless this is like the most clean, like the most high quality, like whatever, like even at that, I mean, 150 or 200 is. I just think they're milking it a little bit at 400. I think people are still going to make money. I think if these are the only way you can get that card, they're still going to do well. But like they're given just a couple cards and like probably just like a couple deck boxes. It just like that just seems so overpriced for like the average player, like the person going to regionals, the person going to their card shop. Like this is just not pertaining to their normal target audience whatsoever. This is like I don't know, man. I just like when I see what's in here versus what you get, it does not feel like a consumer like friendly product. So that's just my hot take. That's not my like buy it and flip it take, whatever.
Pair him up, Nick. You go first.
Yeah, the buying to flip. I'm sure there's going to be some money to be made given how quickly they sold out. They did say GameStop was going to have them, and then some stores were going to have them. So hopefully there's going to be more than what was on the Pokemon Center because I was not able to get one this morning. But I think it's a really cool product, and I would love to get my hands on one of them. I think they did a really good job making it like a really nice display. All even like the decks of cards are obviously the biggest thing. Having the OG big three in there is awesome. Gives me celebrations vibes, which I really like celebrations. So that's part of why I really like this. But then even like all the stuff outside of the cards, like the play mats, the dice, the damage counters, I think they did a really good job making all that stuff like a premium quality product. And I think as like a display piece, it's gonna look really, really good.
Haven't held it yet. You don't know if it's super high. I mean, you hope it's high quality for four
Well,
hundred
from
dollars.
the pictures, it does look like a really good quality.
I'm
And
actually
I
showing
would
the pictures
assume
now.
them charging $400 for it, it's gotta be a good quality.
Yeah, I mean, sure, but like, think if you're the guy. So, okay, here's a market indicator that really bothered me the other day. Is this was like last year or something sometime. I feel like when I was going to card shows, I feel like every one of my buyers was a reseller. I feel like everything I sold to someone, they were going to resell it to someone else. And I was like, why is everything I'm selling just going to reseller? Like to me, that's not a good indicator of the hobby. And when I look at this product, this is a product that will be resold. This is a
Oh yeah.
product that the cards will be graded, they'll be flipped. You're going to sell the dice. This is that like this is not a product for someone who wants to use it. So like if I'm 22 years old and I'm going to card shops every weekend playing the game, and I want to buy this because I think the playmat's cool and I want to use this. I'm going to play this art deck. I'm going to play the Venusaur deck. I don't want to sell it. Like to me, this is not affordable. Like how many decks out there exist today that are under $400? I would assume most decks people play cost less than $400 to make. It just to me, this just screams risk. And like, yeah, the Zards will probably be valuable, but it's not for the average consumer. I just feel like it just has a few key indicators or few key features that says be careful with this. Like, maybe don't go all in here. That's just what my hot take.
Hmm.
My turn now. I I
Sure,
I
I'm
turn
gonna roast you.
I turned my lights red. I have in my hand here
Here's my light.
a Magic the Gathering 30th anniversary edition. $1,000 for like 4 packs of cards. It got a lot of people riled up. Not legal for play, different backs. These cards in this Pokemon TCG Classic are actually going to be not legal for play. I think you can use the energies, but you can't use the actual cards. My biggest thing ultimately is like all of this is so overpriced and so absurd. It's like, why is it fine for them to take what cost them $3 in a booster box and sell it for $160, and then it's not fine for them to take what's $5 in production costs or $10 in production costs and sell it for $400? It's like, if the market doesn't want it, they won't buy it. And Magic 30th, there's all this speculation on how many were sold and how many they made and blah blah blah. It's like, who cares? The people who wanted it bought it. The people who didn't. And like, that's all fine. I mean, 7 years ago they made a solid gold Pikachu card. It was about $50 worth of gold, and they sold it for like 10 times that. They're making skateboards that are like, what does a skateboard cost them to make? 8, 10, 12, $15? And then they're selling them for 150 in booster packs. Like, my point is, it's all so arbitrary and silly and crazy overpriced. Like, I say put no cap on it. It's all crazy. Let the market decide. The market decided that this thing sold out in about 5 minutes. So whether it's someone reselling, whether it's this or that, like, they got sold out. So they should have priced it at 1,000. I wish they had.
So the difference with Magic 30 is people hated it so much that no one wanted it before it even came out. The market had like colluded that it's like something that's like anti-player collector, this, that. So they like objectively pushed it back. The difference here is this was hyped so much with the video, the promo, this and that. The market consensus was gotta have it, want it. I don't care as soon as it releases. I need to buy it. Like, the market consensus here was the opposite of Magic 30. It was like, we gotta have it. And so for them to show what they're showing here, which is like, there's not a cool Charizard playmat. It is Pokemon Classic, but like, the Classic has Ken Sugimori artwork. This is like the most plain Jane. And yeah, you took the Classics, reprinted them, which is like the lowest expectation. That's like what we expected at a minimum. But everything else is like black. Like the Classics to me was like base set. It just, I don't know. I feel like this was a must have, gotta have product. I'm clicking buy it now without looking. And it sold, like, when I looked this morning, it was like 20 minutes, 30 minutes after release. And like, I would have clicked buy it now, I wouldn't have even looked at it. But when you spend time and you look at it, I'm like, man, like I just don't think this has their customer in mind at all. I just like, yeah, I don't know.
Oh, and
I don't think my opinion is going to change.
one thing I've got to say, I see Alex saying in chat, I am by no means telling people to buy. I think it's absurd. I think it's like the red light, evil Dan hopping. Like, people ask me to hop off the fence. When Magic 30 comes out, I hop off that fence. When $400 products come out, I wish they went further. I wish it was $2,000. I wish the cards were serialized. I just want to see what happens. I think Pokemon will get there eventually, but I'm kind of impatient. I want to see the first 1 of 100 Charizard. I want to see like what the market will do with that. And again, if you don't want it, don't buy it. It's easy. I'm not buying it to speculate. I'm kind of like Gambler Dan. He's got house money. He's kind of insane. I'm buying a couple. If I get allocated any from distribution at a discount, which I'm not 100%, Nick, do you know if we're getting any wholesale?
I don't think so. I haven't heard anything. I wouldn't imagine we would get any.
I saw someone mention in
I think we would have
Discord.
heard something by now.
I saw someone mention in Discord that we are. So I'm not sure if they were guessing or if they actually knew, but I'll take, this will be heavily limited, I would guess. I'll take my whole allocation. Maybe they'll do a second reprint wave and I'll end up wrecked. But like, this is honestly one of those things that I think it's an interesting release. I'm going to be a part of it. It's probably going to make stupid money, but by no means am I telling you to go into it, because you could lose a lot of money. PokeBeach actually put out an article. Supposedly, whatever cards are exclusive to this product when it comes out will be re-released in the spring in some other product. So heavily cautioning you, if you're buying this to like, I don't know, like I'm going to keep mine sealed. I'm probably not going to race for any graded plays. If it doubles up overnight, I'll probably just take my money, take my chips off the table and leave. But yeah, I think it's like these things are interesting when they come out. It's interesting to see all the different reactions and commentary around them.
So let's stick on modern for a little bit. Like if it's reprinted and there's any printing quality difference whatsoever, any little difference, they'll be treated as two separate products. Like just just any slight change which could happen. Even the copyright date at the bottom changing coming out next year would signify them as being two different releases. I think you'll make a lot of money on this. I think you'll do really well. I think as for you and your business, I think buying as many as you can is a great decision. I think the buyers for that probably aren't in chat right now. I also think like when it comes to modern and plays, like you see 151, like I saw someone release 151 for $100 in premium collection, Mew thing, that super premium collection. And then, if you got a case, it was like 360 or 350 or something. So you got to remember when Celebrations came out last year, it dipped down to like 80 pretty quick. I even think with 151, when release is out and you got to think about how much Pokemon's printing this and that, I think there'll be plays where you can buy it at 80. I think everyone's selling them today for $100 plus, or trying to just move what they have because they remember what happened with the Charizard. I mean, you can't get better than Charizard, for a lot of things. So I think for this modern stuff, I'd just be patient, and it's actually probably counter to both y'all's businesses, but I think a lot of that stuff will be at 80 come release. So
I
sorry, Nick and Dan, if I
I
think about to buy
often
from you.
speak against my
Thanks
own
for
best
ruining my
interests.
business, Zach.
Rusty actually is in chat. Rusty said from distribution, he's been told we will get allocation, but it will likely be heavily allocated. So I actually did go on. I saw it posted. I bought one at full retail plus sales tax because Pokemon Center doesn't allow you the opportunity to not pay it. They don't take sales tax exemptions. I'll buy my whole allocation though. Like especially if it's very limited. If it's 20 or less, I'll buy the whole thing and then just see where it goes. But if someone were asking me, should I go if it comes back in at 440, there's just a lot of up, there's a lot of down from that. It's a riskier play. There's probably more certainty. Like if 440, 450 is a significant portion of your cash flow and you're dealing with a lot of unknowns, I would say there's probably better opportunity. Go to a convention, go to a Collectacon, spend 450 on a Moonbryon you know is going to get a 10, and make a guaranteed, like, well, not guaranteed because you got to wait for it to come back, but make $300. You can make $300 in a few weeks if you just buy gradable cards, grade them, and sell them, as long as you can pre-grade well. But it's all relative to your scale. It's all relative to like what your again, back to everyone's opportunity cost is different. For me to throw a couple grand on Magic 30th and open one for the memes for seeing if I could get a Black Lotus, and for me to buy a few of these, and I'm doing it, but I'm not like advising it as good financial advice or like a good investment or a good flip. Like it is risky, inherently risky.
Passion.
Chat.
Passion.
See, it gets the chat rowdy, right? It gets things riled up. It gets me off my fence. I like products like this. I remember back to E4 days. I remember when the 24 karat gold Pikachu came out, and people were talking about how it's not right for them to charge such a premium over the gold value, and it's X amount worth of gold, and they're selling it for Y, and it's like, well, how'd that pan out for the people who ended up buying it? Not that that's going to be an indicator for future things like that. But look at the Rocket case. Like, how can we say that 400 for this product is like wrong or bad when 7 years ago they released a premium? It was literally a plastic suitcase that probably got made in China, probably cost them 25 cents a piece. Those Team Rocket cases, 2 cards, a couple coins, and they sold it for $100. Their production cost in that was like $2. For us to say that this is okay and this is not okay, it's just so arbitrary in my opinion. Like that's where I come from. It's all crazy overpriced. So why don't we like test the limits of that? And I can't fault Pokemon for seeing what people will be willing to pay. That's where I come from, all of it.
Crazy, man. crazy world we live in.
It is.
Um,
Hopefully we'll finally see a good print quality with those.
yeah, I want to just do a quick shout out. I think whenever you have good friends in the hobby and you always have a way to give back and stuff for people, it's always a surprise when someone gives back for you. So I want to take a second, shout out Mason Camp real fast. He surprised me with something that I totally didn't expect. He got me a Jolteon riding on a Charizard, which is surreal. So to me, this is my special delivery Jolteon, I guess you could say.
Very
That's nice.
nice.
Artist here is, man, it's not one of the Art Academy. It's, I think, one of the creator packs. I always forget it's like where that Mudkip comes from, but it's the artist that did the Mudkip. Man, so I don't know.
Oh,
I gotta remember where the card came from. But long story short, he's been getting Mudkip signed by this artist for like a little bit, and then yeah, I was able to. He didn't even tell me. He just had this commission and she drew it, and I can't believe it. Like that's just, to me, it just blows my mind that someone would, one, have the opportunity to get that, and then two, like get something for a friend and not as a gift. So I just, like, I'm just boom blown away. I literally just got that in the mail like yesterday, day before, and I thought it was wild.
that's
Mason's a
really
good
cool.
dude.
That's nice of him.
Yeah. What do you guys think about like super like niche products like red logo jungle with curve logos? Like when you buy these and you sit on them, or you collect them or this or that. Like, I mean, you guys obviously run businesses and stuff, but you guys collect too. Like, if that box came up for sale, like what price point would you buy it? Or just, it's like it's an interesting take because like that red logo fossil box that I have, I know like one of you guys was interested in as well too. It's like I've had that for like 5 years. It's like it's something you sit on. So I don't know. It's a weird product to collect and to hold. So
Liquidity
The
is tough.
the yeah. I don't personally I'm not a big fan of the red logo jungle just because the cards are almost identical. I know the red logo, they're a little bit more glossy. But the differences are like super hard to tell apart. But with the red logo fossil, where you have the distinct difference of the copyright date, um, personally, I like that more than the jungle.
But the price is also like 3 or 4x. So you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I like, Charizard better than Blastoise, but Charizard costs 4 times. You know what I mean? It's like there's also that argument too. So
Me personally, more and more, like if I were to have someone offer to sell that to me, I just have a hard time when the price is multiples and the liquidity is fractions. I just try to like proportionally offer lower because again it comes into opportunity cost and cash flow and all those different things. If I get a Moonbryon at 70% of the recent sold, I know I can sell that in a day.
right.
I can fearlessly auction that card. I cannot fearlessly auction a super niche booster box like that. And then you get into the layers of like authenticity and all that different stuff. So yeah, those
Yeah.
items are kind of scary.
It's a hard time when you go to do like slab buyouts for people, like unless you're gonna like just you have another medium, like streamers or this or that. Like someone's like, "Hey, you want to buy my slabs?" It's like, well, if I'm gonna collect them, like, yeah, I'll add them to my collection. But, like, if you want me to like buy your slab table at like full market, it's like I can go on eBay and hit buy now, or I can go to an auction and get less, or maybe it's like to buy slabs, like you really have to be at that 70% or lower. And a lot of times when you do that, you're like you just kind of feel like you're taking advantage of someone. So a lot of times people approach like, "Hey, you want to buy slabs?" It's like, you probably should just auction it. Like it's probably a safer route than just taking like a massive haircut up front. So I find that I do buy slabs less and less when it comes to just pure business, things I'm doing. If it's an immediate play, if it's a long term play, it's different. You can buy slabs all day at market if you're not going to sell them for a year.
Hmm.
That's just
Mhm.
you to speculate on the market. But
Yeah, some of my best performing flips, I guess, weren't even intentionally flips. Some of my best purchases I ever made from like a percent gain per year we're collector boy Dan buying a card that he's never owned before. Like a lot, like I just had fortunate timing when I kind of ascended the peak and did all my Watsi goals, did all my English set collecting goals. Next, I turned towards like trophies and Japanese promos. And I remember the buy thread still coming back from Washington Worlds late 2019. I started buying pearls and rings and full art Pikachu trophies. And it part of it was like, I know these are the goods. I like relative to a lot of other things, these feel undervalued given how older, rarer, minter, better they are. And so I bought them with future value somehow in mind, but more as a collector to own them at some point. And then 2020 happened, and they did pretty well, but not even as well as some of the English set cards that I had sold pre-boom, leading into the boom. But yeah. I saw your average player has a question towards the bottom of the chat. That's pretty good. I had a friend recently sell all boxes from Watsi except Red Logo Jungle and first edition Shadowless Base. He did this because he felt they were too stagnant. What do you think about his decision? I don't know how long he's owned them, but he should have sold them a couple years ago. But it's easy to say that in hindsight, obviously. But Zach touched on this earlier, and I think I've been touching on a recurring basis as far as opportunity cost and cash flow. If you're sitting on an entire set of Watsi boxes and it's hampering your ability to do business otherwise, to me, it's an obvious decision. Sell them, make money in the short term, flipping in the known. But if you, again, it all depends on your circumstances. But if I had to hold $1 million in anything, and it's like you have to hold this in that, and you cannot sell for 5 years. One of the last things I'd go for, honestly, is probably like Watsi booster boxes. I would probably slant more towards like ultra modern booster boxes. I would slant more towards, or like single, very rare, low pop, historic cards. So yeah, if I had to park money and couldn't touch it, couldn't move it, it wouldn't really want to be in Watsi boxes. It would more be in like getting in at wholesale cost of brand new stuff, or just buying like single, one-off, like high grade, low pop, hard to replicate cards.
I think his question's always also like, he thought they were too stagnant. What do you think about the decision maybe not to sell those two? It's like I think he just has like price history, you know what I mean? So he just knows like, hey, Red Logo Jungle was like 6K when everything else was like way lower. Now it's at like less than double the premium. Like for example, if someone paid me 12K for that today, I would take it. You know what I mean? And so it's like, what does unlimited jungle go for? 6K plus, maybe 5,500 a good day, 65 on a bad. First ed jungle is probably over 12, and so it's like it's already in this weird sort of part where it hasn't grown as fast as other items. So maybe one, they're speculating that there's room to kind of recalibrate. Because I think we always talk about Zard is kind of the baseline. Everything relates to this. Zard is 500,000. What should Blastoise? If Zard is 100,000, should Blastoise be lower? You know what I mean? So it's like you always think about the relation of things. Do the market's correcting itself, or not selling first ed base? Like he probably thinks first ed base should be a $500,000 box, which probably isn't unrealistic. It probably has more to do with how many $500,000 bidders are there out there compared to just 10K bidders, for everything else. So I don't think it's a bad move, but it's also a speculative move too. So I like the idea of getting out of boxes altogether rather than trying to pick and choose the winners. I mean, you still have some exposure, but if you're going to keep any box, keep first ed base is probably good, especially if you know it's real, especially if you have a good provenance and source, because that's not going to be the case going forward.
Yeah. It is pretty wild how many boxes are getting opened up, especially like base jungle fossil boxes. Those are getting opened up all the time. And yet you can still find so many that are available for sale. So it makes you wonder how many. Will we ever reach a point where they're getting tougher to find, and how long are we from that?
Shout out
It
TCA
does not seem
Gaming.
like there's an end in sight anytime soon.
I mean, hot take, you can open a box and make more money if you're streaming than someone who probably just wants to collect the box. You can
Oh
buy a
yeah.
sheet and cut it up and make more money than someone who just wants to buy the sheet. They're these sort of pieces, players in the market that are acting outside of like what we've known. So again, in 2015, the live streaming wasn't really around. Maybe for video games, but not for like e-commerce sort of transaction. And so it's a weird, it's weird. There's a lot of plays like that where the profitable or the number one buyer is not what we know. And it may change. There may be things like that in the future where, the number one buyer is buying or doing things for a different reason than what we're doing today. And maybe we're just not aware of that. Maybe there's a VR world where I don't know. I'm spitballing here, but like there's a play there or something else.
I'm assuming you guys saw, and Julia wants to know if we talked about the Van Gogh promo. So anyone familiar? Pokemon a few years back did the Edward, I believe it's Monk. I always said Edward Munch. The Scream promos.
That's always how I've said it.
Yeah, I believe it's Edward Monk or something like that. But anyways, Van Gogh promos. The first thing my mind goes to, and I like Moonbryon Starry Night. If you could do a crossover between Moonbryon and Starry Night, I will buy a lot of them. I mean, the prices will be nuts out of the gate. I'm sure it'll be like an initial Unagaba situation where a lot of prices are going out, orders are getting canceled as the market figures out like how many of them were actually made. Regardless of how many were made, though, I would buy a lot of them. Who knows what we'll actually get, but first thing like my desire goes to is a Starry Night Moonbryon. That would be amazing.
That would be really good. I wonder if are we ever gonna have something like those Scream promos again? Because I
Van
feel like
Gogh.
I
That's
feel
it.
like the what was that?
Van Gogh. That's it. That is
But
the closest thing
they'll
you
be
get.
No, but
priced like
I
it.
mean, like in terms of like price wise,
Yeah,
like
that's the
those
issue.
cards were really good buys and really good sells for a long time. But then when you talk about like the Unagaba evolutions, those were they had a short window where you could buy and sell them, but now it's already becoming something where you're not making much on even tens. So is every promo gonna be like that going forward? Just because there's so many more people buying and selling these, or is it there ever gonna be something like the Scream promos again?
Don't
I
forget
love how
though.
Dan is actively.
Well, don't forget though,
Okay.
and I'm not like using this to forecast what the Van Gogh promos might do or the Nagabas. People look at the Mario boxes today and the graded price today, and they forget that there was a multi-year period where those cards were not profitable to grade and sell. I actually was gifted.
Hmm.
I was gifted a PSA 10 half art Mario Pikachu back during one of the E4 Secret Santas because it was like a $40 card. Imagine buying a $40 box, breaking it out, grading the promos. Same with the Screams. I was selling PSA 10 Scream Pikachus for like 50, 60 bucks. I was selling PSA 10 Scream Eevees and Rowlets for like 30, 40 bucks. And the numbers might not be exact, but what I'm trying to say is like those cards did the same thing, just on a much smaller scale because things were on a much smaller scale back then. That's not me saying that like, oh, half our Mario Pikachus were 40 and now they're 1,000. That means Nagabas are going to be 1,000 too. Like, please don't take that from it. But I'm optimistic on short term there being some pain for all the stonkers trying to grade and flip and auctioning everything and getting $35, $33 for a PSA 10 Nagaba. And I think one of these days they'll just like dry up a bit more. A lot of those things are more being consumed by collectors, taken away from the market forever. And then someday down the line, those might pop some. Not from 35 to
Hmm.
3,500, but I think those will be doing a fair bit better in a couple years.
Yep.
I love how Dan is like, this card's gonna come out. It's gonna be manipulated by the market. Like I'm gonna get canceled on. Like all these bad things are gonna happen. It's gonna be painful. Like shady things, this and that. Like secret deal, this that. Like all this stuff. And he's like, I'm still gonna buy it. It's like still like do me dirty, do
I'm
whatever
gonna
you
buy
want. I want it.
thousands.
It's like feed me the drugs. It's like just feed it to me. I don't care. It's like you can, and that's what's crazy is like sometimes people have people they don't like, and it's like when it comes out of the cards, it's like people will look past the differences to buy a card they like, even if I don't know, even if there's all these like negative things. It's like all these bad things are gonna happen to these cards that release, and you're like, I don't care. I still want it. I'm like, I'll deal with it. Like I've dealt with it before. I'll deal with it. I don't know. I just kind of blows my mind to hear like you say that. Then you're still like so like yeah. I'm not gonna watch it play out. I'm all in all the way. Like I'm just gonna figure it out.
It is a crazy market we exist in.
Yeah. Um, Dan, do you want to talk about anything on your desk?
I do. Let me so Zach's gonna be 30 seconds
Let's
behind.
see it.
It's not gonna be what you're expecting, but let me show something else really quickly. I figured I'd pivot and I'd have the Pokemon Classic up still. But I'm gonna start with a quick little recap of Charlotte. I had two Moonbreons side by side, and I got a lot of talk, a lot of conversation on both of them. I've got the OG Moonbreon, I've got the new Evolving Skies one. It was just funny to see. Like, I remember I made a video. Which one would you buy? The prices have been separating a little bit, so the prices have been separating some. I think they were both around 1,000, and recent solds on the new Moonbreon are a little under 1,000, and on the other Moonbreon a little bit over 1,000. I was surprised though. I thought both of these were gonna sell that weekend, and neither did. But what Zach was actually referencing, I kept it off frame. I don't know if anyone caught it. I accidentally showed it on screen. I held it up in front of me when I was talking with my hands and making a point. But yeah, this card, let me see if I can zoom in. I probably can't really that well. This is a card that Zach sent to me and will soon be making its appearance in the eBay vault. I guess we're live right now on Thursday. It will not be going to the eBay vault until next week. If there are any high rollers out there, if anyone is interested in making an offer, feel free to hit me up. But yeah, I will be consigning this card on behalf of Zach. And you want to give any further commentary around it, Zach?
It's actually the best Charizard I own. So I went back and looked at all the copies, and it actually to me looks better than the other ones that I have. Just when you look at centering and then just all the different features. It's a card that was in a case, and I talked about it a little bit on uh, next gen a couple weeks ago, but the case just didn't look the best, and I felt like if I sold it, it just would go for a discount just because it just for whatever reasons didn't look good. And then I got it recased, and everything that concerned me about the case and the display like went away. It's like I think maybe there was some little plastic flakes in there that you get with some of the PSA cases. It's like they have a air gun they use to kind of blow. Every card company has one, and I guess now like it's like you look at the card, it just looks perfect. It looks super clean, and so I figured going to the holiday season. I've always talked about October, November being the best time to sell. Higher end cards like this. I decided that letting go of another Charizard that would just the right move, especially with going full time Pokemon. There's more uncertainty out there, and there's some big things that I've looked at getting, and you just have to make sure if you're going full time Pokemon, you better have some like liquidity. Like you better be able to like pay your bills, this and that, and like be able to buy a big collection at the same time too. If you've only got like a little bit in the bank and you don't have another backup source, like you're really hoping that Pokemon doesn't like go down overall. And so for me, this was just a decision that Dan and I know we talked about. I know I talked about with other people, but I just feel like this is something that let go of this right now, and then there's other things that I could do with this that I think will be better decisions, at least in the near term. So if you're interested in the card, if you want to add one to your collection, you've been looking for a while, please let me know. I think Dan, we're talking just make an offer at this time, and then if you do a deal before Monday, great. If not, then it'll be picked up via armored truck in the middle of the woods somewhere, and yeah, it'll be up for sale digitally probably here in a couple weeks.
And I will say too, like I wasn't sure, but I was pretty sure that when they recased it, I would have assumed they would have done high res scans, because had you not recased it, they were not doing them back when this was graded. You can see it is a zero cert.
Right.
But It now has high res scans. So I apologize for having 720p upload quality right now. That's all the Deep Woods internet will allow me to stream in. So if you want to look up the cert number and you want to go over to PSA, you can see like high res scans on there, whatever your internet will allow you to download. But yeah, I mean, I haven't ever owned a PSA 10 first Charizard, but I have held a few. And I mean, I don't want to like show the card because I'm making a commission off it or anything like that. But I guess I'll just let the PSA scans speak for themselves. It's a nice card, and very
I'm
very
not looking.
thankful Zach passed it along and let me facilitate the sale.
I'm not Logan Paul, so I'm not able to get a BGS 10 out of it. I'm sorry. I've never
Yeah.
tried, but it's being a celebrity is a major factor in getting that prestige.
Yeah, I think that was a huge factor with that card.
I mean,
But
as the story
go ahead.
goes, supposedly he cracked it. Gary didn't crack it, and I've always been one to say like if you're gonna go for it, you gotta go for it because the clarity of that these slabs afford you looking through them, I would not see where a BGS grader could be confident enough. Like it's one thing if it's in a BGS slab, they can crack it out of the 9.5 case, they can review it and see if it's worthy of a 10. And if it's not, they can put it right back in a BGS 9.5 case. But when you're looking through a PSA 10 case as BGS, the last thing you want to do is crack out a PSA 10, see something that you couldn't see because it was obscured by the plastic, and then have to tell the customer, hey, you've now got a BGS 9.5 or a raw Charizard. And that's why the min grade exists. And I have successfully gone from PSA 9s to BGS 9.5s, but I've never gone from like a PSA 10 to a BGS 10 or a whatever other upgrade.
I've wasted thousands of hours of the year trying to do things in cases, and like I'm a firm believer you need to crack. I mean, they who knows? They just push it through and look at it, but
They
I
take
think
free
they just
money,
look for
yeah.
nothing. But literally, like pull up any PSA 10. I mean, like hardly any PSA 10s are perfect. You're gonna see a flaw in any PSA 10 basically. And it's like okay, like there's your flaw. Like okay, pass. It's just like you got to have enough confidence to crack it, even if it's already in a big grade. And like, congrats to Logan for cracking a 10. I consider that to be more ignorance than anything. Like not realizing that it's probably not getting regraded 10 if you crack a PSA 10. But like that, he may be one of the only people ever that's ever cracked a PSA 10 Charizard. That just blows my mind. That the risk tolerance on.
Yeah.
That'd be a scary one to crack.
Yeah.
I wish he had
Maybe.
recorded it and popped that into the video. That would have been a nice inclusion there.
Like, oh, I dropped it. Like,
I dropped it.
like, you know what I mean? Oh man, he records everything. I'm surprised he didn't post it. Maybe he paid someone else to crack it, like someone in our hobby that's good at it.
But yeah,
Like when you
oh, I was just going to say
go
we're
ahead.
going to be wrapping up in the next 10, 15 minutes. So if anyone has any last minute questions, I apologize. With such a famous guest as we have the pleasure of having today, I was not able to keep up with the chat as well as I usually do when it's just Nick and myself. But if you've got any last minute questions, feel free to pop them in. I linked Zach's Instagram and YouTube. If you're somehow not following him there, go follow them. But yeah, we're gonna hang out for a little bit longer. I will try to remember, Zach, to add your E4 thread with your wants list, just in case anyone wants to check that out and try to help out Zach add a couple more cards. But go ahead. Sorry, I interrupted you there.
No, I was gonna say something unrelated, but yeah, if you didn't join the video right in the very beginning, like what I'm doing today, basically doing large buyouts of things. So if you have a lot of like um, raw cards that you want to move that are English or Watsi or Japanese or basically just doing large volume deals. And so like if you have 500 cards or more, I mean, feel free to reach out. For English, these would need to be like hits, like if they're like more modern, so like a V, EX, Alt Art, full art, textured alt art, we pay a little bit more. If you have Watsi bulk, so if you have like, base jungle fossil and you just have like a ton of it, I'll give you higher than the bulk rates you see online for a lot of things. And really looking for excellent near mint plus cards. And so if you have like minty mint cards, we'll pay a little bit more for those. And so we just have a lot of different like business uses we're putting them into, and trying to buy as many as we can and trying to get consistent suppliers. And so I know I've bought from some card shops that have already told me, first of next month, I'm gonna have more for you. So if you're someone that constantly, open sealed product and you pull things through and maybe you grade the highest end cards and you got some cards you don't want to grade, and you just kind of let them build up, feel free to reach out. That's kind of the core business that I'm growing right now. So still trying to build those relationships, get everything established. But absolutely, if you have a ton of cards you want to move that you don't know what to do with, let me know. And I'll try to give you a pretty attractive price compared to what the market.
We do have one question that is kind of like a staple. I think every podcast has like one question they have to feed every guest. Do you return your shopping carts, Zach?
Absolutely. Like you want to be a good person in the world. Do you litter on the ground? Feed the bird that needs water on the side? Brush Nick's hair when you see him? I mean, like, absolutely. You have to do what the world needs.
I mean, Nick would say you're a job destroyer. Nick would try to spin it and try to he litters so that people can be paid by the city to go around.
I
And
never said
he
I litter. What a monster.
he litters so that people can be paid to go pick the trash. He leaves his shopping carts to keep all the body shops, all the local body shops, puffing out those cart dings. Like, how are they gonna put food on the table if Nick is not leaving his shopping carts laying around?
Yeah. So Dark Lava Lizard asked a question. Who is we? I do have a business partner that I'm working with, who has a history with sports and has done very, very well there. Just knows kind of the card market inside and out, done a lot of different things. Typically, his strategies are a little bit different than strategies that I have. So there's a really strong complementary sort of setup there, and ultimately partner with him just to kind of have a balance, what you could say throughout everything. So anything that I do buy does go to sort of that. We have an agreement between ourselves that really any purchase is our purchase. So same for him. So anything he buys, kind of comes to us. So it's not just by myself. It is something that I partner with someone on, and everything is collective. So even collection cards, if I buy something for myself, just with our agreement, it's like you got to make sure no one skims off the top, this or that. So, the collection cards, hey, like just want to let you know this or that. So even things he might buy for his own collection, like he runs by me too. So it is kind of a balance, I guess you could say. But the goal is that, the two of us can build something out, grow together. And I do think a lot of entrepreneurs that are like single entrepreneurs typically like struggle more and probably fail more often. If you do have a partner or someone kind of keeping you accountable, someone checking in, this and that, someone that you can work with, it typically leads to a better outcome, especially when there's that pressure. You have that competitive edge. Can I bring in more deals than he can? Or, is he crushing this or that? Or maybe he makes a play I don't see. Or, and a lot of times if we do go places together, we probably aren't, in the same place the whole time. It's like, if we're in the same place, you kind of waste time. You want to bounce around. So, yes, there is someone else in the picture. They're a little bit more private than I am. I've gotten sort of okay with being more on video, this and that over the years. I wasn't that way initially. So maybe become more public at some point. But they didn't start in Pokemon. I think it's just a space they want to be in. And then by partnering together, the goal is that I can do this full time and be more stable. And I think without them, it'd be a little bit more challenging, I guess you could say. And so there's benefits to both. So probably the easy way. It's not just me.
There was one question I think that kind of touched on what we talked about earlier when we were talking about your whole collection and all that. Where'd it go? I just lost it. Oh yeah. So there's been fairly publicly some of these sheets, the galaxy foils, the disco foils as they call them, being cut up. We talked earlier, like Zach, if you were to try to move your whole collection all at once, you would need the perfect buyer. Very likely, if you decided that you needed to liquidate it all, like you would probably have to split it up, because the way that I see it, it's like a big funnel. The buyer of a sheet like that is at the bottom of the funnel. You might not have two bidders for a sheet like that, and it's very, very expensive.
Yeah.
This goes for boxes, selling them via box breaks. This goes for collections, parting them out card by card. When you part things out into singular pieces, you're dealing with the top of the funnel. you're dealing with smaller amounts of money, and you're dealing with a broader collector base because you have a Disco Charizard, a Disco Blastoise, a Disco Clefairy. You can hit a lot of other people. Love it or hate it, it's just like a market reality. And that goes for whether it's sheets, whether it's individual packs, individual pieces of a collection. Love it or hate it, it's a market reality. So that arbitrage play is there, and uh, I can see why some people would think like, oh, the historic nature of a sheet and this and that. The reality, ultimate, like at the end of the day, anyone who wants to realize the largest price, it's just a market reality that's the optimal way to do it. So if and whenever, I mean, I did have like my whole PSA 9 Watsi collection. I had one of those like teaser listings on eBay at an unrealistic price. And then the market went up and up and up. The price came more realistic, so I like upped it more. But ultimately, when I decided to step away from my collection, I undid all those years of work, that all the boxes I opened and graded the nines, all the nine collections that I bought, graded myself and optimized the cleanest nine, the best nines. I broke all that up ultimately, and it is what it is. That's how I achieved the highest price. So me personally, just like the cold, logical number side of it, it makes sense whether you like it or not. What do you guys think?
I
Love
think it does. It does definitely make sense that the sheets are going for a bit less, or the sheets are going for less than the individual cards, just because, like it's exactly what you said. Plus the amount of time and effort that goes into um actually getting the sheet, cutting it, however whoever does that, and then grading everything and all that stuff. You're gonna have a lot more buyers for the individual cards than you are for this whole sheet.
Mm.
I mean, people try to cut sheets for years. I think notoriously with scissors, with the little thing you pull down, this and that. And I think the sheets are being cut today are probably done professionally, and you need an expert with that. An expert's not cheap. It's not like, oh, I bought a sheet, now I'm going to go cut it, and that's zero cost. It's like, well, that cost is probably pretty significant, and you need someone with the history, the expertise, and the eyes, the make sure everything's well centered, this or that, or I mean, how many hand cut cards you see that are just off center? We were at Rusty's house, and I think we saw a lot of the. Um, there's some more notorious ones, but a lot of them don't look that good. I mean, no offense, Rusty, but a lot of them aren't perfectly centered. I guess so, like there are like layers to expertise that go to this that I think do drive like a lot of the value there. And like as long and I was really against it probably 6 months ago. I was just like, don't cut a sheet, preserve it, it's hobby history, this or that. And then I started talking to more and more people. They're like, I'd love to have this card. I can't afford a sheet, but getting like my favorite one from this variant that just doesn't exist, like, I'd pay a little bit for it, and that person's budget is this. It's not, this, or else they probably would buy the sheet and make the same play that whoever's buying the sheets is going to do. So it's a really interesting dynamic, and hearing the stories of the people who are buying the actual cut up cards and collecting them, I think is it's kind of made me more open to like it allows people to have that part of their collection. Now, whether or not like CGC like grading them and putting them in a case and this and that, maybe it should be a different color label, or I think there's a lot of debate there that I don't think should be overlooked. And I see some people talk about it, but I don't think probably more conversation there that could be had. But at the same time, like the sheets are real, like came from the factory. Like they have all the right things. They're the same composite. Or they were printed the right time frame. It's not like they're fake or this or that. Like those are real. Now how they're cut, I think they're NFCs. If like literally if a sheet was printed in 1999, if it wasn't cut in 1999, then to me it's NFC. You know what I mean? It's not fact, which means not factory cut. So I think if the sheets were coming out with curved corners, that'd probably be a red flag to me. Seeing the square,
Mhm.
like clearly, like aren't cut in the same way. I guess you could say that the Watsi were. It is really weird to see your opinion on something change over the years. You guys think of any other examples where like you had a really strong opinion on something, and then whether it was 6 months, 1 month, 5 years, 10 years, like your opinion on that one thing. You think of anything right away that like that?
First thing that jumped into my head was pack weighing. I was super against that back in the day, but
For
now
example,
it makes complete sense to me.
I will say that I took some flack and I had some arguments with some people over pack weighing years ago. I was on the side of it. Like more information, more knowledge being spread further is just power. And if it's kept in the dark, like it's used against people without them knowing. As far as other things, I think I used to just be harsher. I used to be harsher on PSA and CJC, and some would say maybe I still am. But more, it's like I just disagree with the market broadly. And I used to like PSA 10 prices are too high, they're too crazy, it doesn't make any sense. I just realized there's different people out there with different budgets, different goals. And like, even though it may be silly to me, it's like, don't fight it. Just sell what the market values more than you and buy what you value more than the market. Like it's pretty simple. And the same thing goes. Like if you think it's an atrocity that sheets are being cut up and sold as single cards, buy the sheets and be the hero that preserves them. Put them in your museum. I'm too broke to do that. If I ever got hold of one of those sheets, I'd be picking up the phone, calling some numbers. I'd be one of those evil people trying to get it cut up to optimize it. When I buy a box, I break a box and I sell it because like I'm destroying history, cutting sheets and breaking boxes and this and that. Like it's just a reality that there's more money out there for the components. The whole is not greater than the sum of the parts. Very rarely is it in Pokemon. And one thing on the
Yeah.
whole topic of sheets, and I do want to shout out. I will shout out again, and I will link Next Gen TCG, which is a podcast that Zach is a part of with Tetra Ninja. And then I will also shout out DJ Gigabyte because this whole topic of sheet cutting and I believe they're on episode 14 or 15.
Oh,
Oh, episode 21. Coffee Talks
You were
podcast.
close.
Coffee Talks podcast.
okay.
I've listened to all of them. I just couldn't remember how many. They're on episode 21, and they've had a few episodes where they talked about some of their interactions at World, some of their interactions with sheets, and this and that. So, if you want like a little more insight into Dave, Dave actually purchased the sheet, had it cut up, and he didn't share everything. He couldn't share everything, but some amount of that process was actually shared. So go check out that podcast and get a little more in-depth information about that, I guess, if you're interested. With that though, we are at 4:17 p.m. If either of you have anything more on that comment on that topic, feel free to share here, but we will probably be wrapping up pretty soon.
Wish I could listen to everything. Like Coffee Talks podcast, you got the Green Fizz podcast. It's like you got your podcast, and it's like I feel like if I see a cool episode, I'll throw it in a queue and listen, or if I'm doing something in the living room, I'll throw it on and listen. It's really, I wish I could listen to everything, but it would be like 40 hours a week. What at some point you gotta like work, you gotta do other things, and so if there's ever time for background, I throw it on. But like I wish I could listen to everything. I feel like I'm hearing like one in every five and all a lot of the different things that pop up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I appreciate you doing and the hobby. It's all hobby positive. I love it.
Yeah, let me throw a link out there to the Slab podcast because Professor Oak and the Grinches are about 30 something episodes into their own podcast as well. It's a great
Love what
problem
they're
to
doing.
have. Like it's a great problem to have that you can't go to every event that's put on. You can't consume every bit of information, every bit of content that's made. Like it's great that we can be selective in what we decide to consume and go to and travel. That there's just so much out there, so much amazing stuff.
I mean, even
There it is.
Dave and Dan's podcast. I mean, Dan is a wealth of knowledge for the hobby. He's been in the hobby a long time. He works at a card shop with his wife. I mean, he's got so much knowledge, experience in the hobby. David's been to so many worlds events, this and that, and like we did a deal with Minnie earlier this year, and like Minnie was like 8 or 9 during the worlds. Her dad knew more about the event, this and that. Like we were hearing stories from her dad, had dinner with him, and that was amazing. That was so cool. So, David being a little older, it's like you get to hear stories from him. He was there, it's like he has that experience. And it's always so cool to hear like those two, sort of top each other. Can't say enough good things about all the people who are making content. It wasn't always the case, in the hobby, so having too much content is awesome. If you're thinking about being a content creator, I'd say go for it, do it, like give it a shot. I mean, I love just hearing takes on do what you got to do and keep the hobby rolling.
Very much agree.
Exactly.
Love Brad.
So with that, yeah, we're gonna call it. We're gonna wrap it up there. Nick and I will be live in 2 weeks. We are going to switch to Fridays, so October 6th at 1 p.m., 1:15 p.m. You'll be able to find Nick and myself, and then we'll carry on with guests every other episode. Thanks, Zach, so much for coming on. It's Zach talking about the wealth of content we have out there. Zach was one of the originals, one of the OGs back when there wasn't much content to consume. Gem Mint Pokemon was making those collector boy videos, those PSA returns, talking about the cards he was chasing. It was an honor to have you on today, Zach. Thanks again for coming on.
Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, appreciate talking with you, Zach. Always a good time.
Thank you.
See you at the next Collectacon.
Yeah, thank you, chat, for hanging out.